So, we're getting an explanation of how all this, everything that's happening now, got started from the very beginning. So to recap, a survival game is what landed him in this situation. The game is called Savior Rising, or SR for short. It's a young adult academic romance novel-type game. It has a few different routes, but the characters are familiar and well-developed. As usual, he completed the game and saw its ending. He found it incredibly fun and felt a real sense of accomplishment. But then, the very next day, he was somehow whisked away. It makes absolutely no sense. It's not like he insulted the main character or the game developer, and he wasn't even that attached to the protagonist, honestly. Anyway, he's now inhabiting the body of Doug Campbell, who, unfortunately, possesses zero magical power. He's the heir to a nameless viscountcy, basically a third-rate NPC in this world's grand scheme. Agriculture is the main industry of the county of Campbell, but it lacks any dungeons, which are commonly found throughout the empire. This county barely got a mention in the original game, so the son of a viscount entering the Imperial Academy, that's a story that turned everyone's world upside down. Right now, Doug is saying goodbye to his father. His father is clearly emotional, telling him that he is the pride of the county. He advises Doug not to cause any trouble and to take care of himself. He says the best thing Doug can do as the son of a viscount is to avoid attracting attention. And Doug mentioned that he already knows about this. But after seeing his stats, he became desperate because all his attributes are at F. He has no skills, no masteries, and no special gifts. And it's explained that according to the game's system, if you ignore the main quest, you lose the game immediately. And since he's going to enter the Elfant Academy, he knows it's going to descend into chaos due to the villain's violence. And he's not going to do anything that might put his survival in danger. So he told his father not to worry. He's going to do his best not to attract anyone's attention, and he also won't have any dreams about unnecessarily raising the Viscount's reputation. And his father was trying to say that wasn't quite it, dear. That's what he meant to say. But then there's the dog. The dog says he'll keep his grades below average, and the father says that's not what he wants either. So later, our hero, the dog perhaps, is on a train, thinking he absolutely has to avoid drawing any attention to himself. To him, of course. It shouldn't be too difficult, right? But his academic life is about to begin. And right at the very start of his academic journey, he ends up sitting right next to this girl, because this is Nori, an accident by blood. Someone you definitely don't want to cross. The kind of person who can single-handedly create a mountain of corpses. More specifically, this is Nori Elinarse Latristan. She's the final boss of this game. In every single scenario of this game, she and the protagonist are destined to fight each other. It's then that her sanity crumbles, and the dormant existence of the Grey Demon devours Aonori's body. Talk about a horrifying transformation. This is what turns her into the final boss. The ultimate challenge, against whom no one but the protagonist, who has fully completed his character development, can even hope to fight. This is going to be epic. And then Nori asks Doug if he's okay. He sounds genuinely concerned. She asks if he needs a doctor. You look a little pale, she adds, her voice laced with worry. Doug, ever the stoic, insists he's fine. No, I'm okay, he reassures her. But Nori isn't convinced. She brings up the Duke of Tristan. She thinks he's overly concerned with his public image. His decision to sit here in this section instead of first class was a calculated move, she points out. It's all about showing that they're just regular people. Accessible, she emphasizes. And that they enjoy mingling with the rest of the noble families. It's all a game, isn't it? He apologized to Daoud for making him worry. He added that everyone who travels with her ends up making the same expression. Daoud thought that Yunori was different from what he remembered. Her personality in the game is summarized as meritocratic, perfectionistic, and bold. But he wondered about this sensitive side of her. Yunori asked him why he wasn't answering. He's clearly wondering about something else. Daoud said it was nothing, that she's unexpectedly kind. Actually, Yunori asked what he meant by unexpectedly. He'd heard some bad things about her. Who said that? Daoud got nervous and thought, oh no, I'm such an idiot. I messed up. And he said that he heard some things about her being very restrictive. And Nori mentioned that she's a pretty strange person. Daoud said he hears that a lot. Daoud even thinks she's like an NPC in a game. He can't get involved. He just has to stay quiet, enjoy the scenery. And thinking about it, he figures it is a magnificent landscape. In fact, there are even boulders flying around. Wait a second. Flying boulders? What's going on? And he shouts, Council President, excuse me, and he throws himself on top of Aonori, just as a massive meteor smashes into the train they were riding on. And then it's explained that the recognition and creation of armor for adult skeletons is actually an amulet that Aonori always wears. Daoud! He figured that was the only way he'd survive this. That's why he threw himself on top of her, so that he would be protected too. And Nori asked if he was okay. You're heavy, she said. So get off me! He realized he had landed quite comfortably on her softer parts. And of course, he apologized to her, and Nori said it was okay. You did that to save me, didn't you? And she said that, It's the first time a man has gotten this close to me. But she understood his intentions, so he didn't need to apologize. Daude thought, thank goodness she didn't realize I only did it to be protected by her. Then Nori asked him what his name was, and Daud thought, looks like I'll be seeing her often. If he answers, then he can ask what she's going to do with this information. But he got nervous and only said Dog Campbell. And Honore said she won't forget and that she'll reward him later. Then the system popped up, saying that Dog has gained the interest of a villain, and the conditions for a special gift have been met. He received the ability, Desperate Survival and Deadly Charm. And later, when people arrived at the accident scene to see what happened and help the people, one of the doctors said that thanks to the special measures taken by the trained security officers, there weren't many casualties, and said that the people who have been checked can leave. And Daoud, I was inside one of those carriages, the ones carrying the rescued people. Meanwhile, he was checking out his special gift. He'd received Destined Attraction. The more interest he receives from those with malicious traits, the more rewards he'll get. And Daoud thought, no wonder. I couldn't figure out the condition. No matter what I did, because that was the condition. That's what it took to unlock his special gift. He mused, in Campbell County, there aren't many people with malicious traits, are there? It's hard to find someone who isn't neutral or easygoing. Well, he thought, I can check this gift out now that I have it. On top of that, he's received 2 special abilities. The first is a desperate survival skill, ranked unknown. Intriguing. It boosts Doldy's stats significantly in moments of dire need. And get this, the effect scales with the danger he faces. The riskier the situation, the bigger the boost. Now, the other ability, it's called Deadly Charm. Apparently, it makes it easier for him to gain the interest of those with, shall we say, less than pure hearts. Malignant traits, to be precise. And just like the survival skill, the more extreme the situation, the stronger the effect. Talk about a double-edged sword. Dold figures this desperate survival ability will definitely come in handy. He's going to need it. On the other hand, this Deadly Charm, he's not so sure about this one. This could get complicated. And he thinks, wait, what exactly does that mean? The villainous characters. The game's cast of antagonists. And he's thinking about these villainesses. One's a warrior, a berserker consumed by battle. Another is a sword deity, a bit mentally unstable to say the least. She's got a habit of slicing anyone who gets within 3 steps of her. Then there's the violent assassin. She'll eliminate anyone if they're marked as a target. And finally, a genius mage, someone who senses the world shifting around her. Daoud sees them as humans who potentially could wipe out his race. But Daoud figures things are okay for now. Or are they? It's crucial for him to acquire skills that aid in his survival. The thing he found most strange, it seems his abilities are ranked as unknown. Even though he's a veteran in the game, S rank, he has no idea what that's supposed to mean. The doctor asks if Dog is all right. He suggests a psychological evaluation, but Dog insists he's fine. He's okay. So he steps out of the carriage and sighs deeply, taking in his surroundings. Later on, at what appears to be an entrance ceremony, someone's giving a speech in the auditorium. But Dog is completely distracted. His mind keeps replaying the conversation with the doctor. The doctor had mentioned he's a former student of Elephant, and also belongs to a nameless noble family. Then he asked Daoud if he thought, even if it was just a coincidence, that the rock fell on her. The doctor said that Inori has a lot of enemies, and he advised Daoud to avoid her for now. He said that Daoud might get hurt just by being near her. Daoud says he'll keep that in mind. The system then chimes in, stating there are 2 days until the first event regarding the stage of trust with Inori. Daoud thinks to himself, I'm already involved with her, even if I don't want to be. He reflects that in this academy, a breeding ground for gossip and rumors, it's not surprising she's a candidate for final boss status. Just being on her side might be a death sentence. Just then, someone calls out to Daoud. He'd been so lost in thought. His friends ask him, why are you so distracted? What's on your mind? So he was told that everyone had been paired up for these duels, except for him. And the dog? Our hero refers to himself as the dog in his thoughts. Then it suddenly hits him. There's a practical exam slated for right after the entrance ceremony. Talk about pressure, and to make matters more interesting, he learns his opponent will be decided. Automatically, no choosing here. Feeling a little awkward, Dog apologizes and blurts out, who exactly am I going to be dueling? He reasons that since everyone else has already picked their sparring partners, the one person left must be the strongest of the bunch. Great. Just then, a girl approaches him, seemingly out of nowhere, and suddenly his palms are sweaty. This is Elia Christianax. She's practically legendary. Considered a fencing prodigy, a genius with a blade. Our hero, Dog, realizes that in the future of this world, she's destined to become the savior, the main character, the hero of the whole game. It hits him like a ton of bricks. He's standing right in front of the protagonist, seeing as he really shouldn't get involved with anyone. He figured he was in deep trouble. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a woman was thinking, Nori's completely out of her mind. The entrance ceremony duels are underway, and she's late. Just as they were wondering when she'd finally show up, she appeared, commanding everyone's attention. Then she slams her sword down onto the table with a thud. The other woman asks her where she's been. It's Nori. She replies coolly that she was handling a few things. The other woman sighs, clearly exasperated. She apologizes to everyone present and explains she needs to deal with something, namely Nori. So, as night falls, she asked Honori how many people had died. Honori replied it wasn't that many. Maybe a dozen or so. Honori explained that those people were there to assassinate her. They cast a meteor spell on the academy train, the train for the academy. They tried to make it look like an accident, but Honori found out who was behind it. They were nearby, so she took them out. And the woman sitting there said that Honori should have left it to the school, but Honori found that irritating. She asked if the woman expected her to be fair and perfect with everyone. Would those people have forgiven her if they'd succeeded? The woman conceded, okay, you're right, but you at least need to change before participating in the duels. And he said if she goes now, she'll be able to face Halia, who is a genius, a 1 in a million type of talent. Halia Christianix. And there's also Daoud Campbell. Wait, what? And there's Nori. She said she recognizes that name, but she asked how Nori knows this guy. He seemed super normal. But then Nori remembered his little smirk and said that guy is actually pretty good. And poor Daoud was over there practically shaking in his boots at the thought of facing Elia. He was thinking his stats are terrible. If he gets hit by any of her attacks, he's a goner. He thinks, this is a dangerous situation, right? His ability will activate, or maybe not. He needs to tap into that desperate survival instinct first. The kind that kicks in when you're fighting for your life. And Daoud is convinced that there are definitely some villains lurking in the audience. So if he doesn't die, at least he might grab the attention of a few of them. Maybe he figured that with his insider knowledge and the boost to his stats, he might even stand a chance of surviving this. But then Elias approached, looking worried, and she asked Daoud to be honest with her. She then questioned if he was a weakling. Don't lie, she says, noticing he's trembling. She declares, I knew it. She threatens to beat him up. But at this rate, Daoud, confused, asks, why the beating for me? Ilya, she demands to know if he's the boy who's been associating with the girls from the Tristan house. He denies it. She spits out that she hates the Norris anyway. Not just her, but the entire Tristan house. She declares them to be demons. Daoud thinks to himself that she's brave to say such a thing. But it's not a lie. Daoud reflects that, according to the game's lore, she has plenty of reasons to resent the Tristans. He realized it's a complicated family drama, but Daoud said he was just in the same seat as her. But Ilya said his face reminds her, so if he irritated her, she'd make him suffer. But Ilya also said he's so weak that they can just pretend they're fighting. What does he think? And Doldu thought that actually sounded kind of appealing. But if he doesn't get stronger quickly in the next 2 days, his life will be in danger, and the only way he'll get noticed by the villains is if. And then he said that Ilya could go all out on him, because he really likes Uni and Tristan too. And Ilya got really angry, and asked if he was sure about that. And Daoud said it's as serious as the hatred she feels for Nori. And he thought, of course he's lying. But if he really wants things to go his way, this is the only way, he thinks, desperation creeping in. And just like that, his deadly charm kicks in. He even gets a notification. Reward earned for attracting a villain. Seriously? Ilya, the villainess in question, declares she won't feel bad about what's coming. And the very next second, what does she do? She lunges at him, ready to obliterate him. He barely manages to dodge a blow that would have definitely killed him. Daoud, poor guy, is absolutely terrified. Elia then asks him if the fact that he dodged means he's not just some weakling. Okay then, she says, a gleam in her eye. I'll have to try a little harder. Daoud is so desperate his system detects his extreme danger, a life-threatening situation. So the system grants him an X rank ability. For some reason, it's the highest level skill that exists in the game. Talk about lucky. And he landed a punch. And he's so powerful, she went flying out of the arena. Everyone watched in stunned silence. They were completely in disbelief. He simply launched her with such force that it created a massive explosion, all from one punch. Poor Daoud nearly had a heart attack right then and there. Nobody knew how to react. It's explained that Daoud Camperbell, a rank F, with all stats, she ate on his very first day at the Elephant Academy, managed to defeat the main character of the game.
So later on,
some kind of council was discussing this very matter. This combat. They said the first impressions of this kid were that his dad was a highly skilled con artist. And they said his opinion. Well, it took a complete 180 after witnessing that showdown. But even so, they admitted it still defies all logic. One man pointed out, as we all know at this table, Doughty had zero fighting abilities, absolutely none. Not before this duel, not ever in his entire life. But, the man insisted, what happened out there was undeniably real. It wasn't some staged act. This prompted the woman with the monocle to ask, How can that possibly be real? The man responded, nobody at this academy could have withstood that kind of hit. He continued, doubt his chances of defeating the academy's most promising student, the one with the highest potential, were a flat zero. He must have achieved this through some sort of substance, an illegal tool, or some other method that allowed him to temporarily amp up his power. But there's another possibility. Maybe he's a monstrous genius. But the woman with the monocle, she said it's hard to believe he won that way. The manner in which he achieved victory is questionable. And she mentioned Kendry de Margrave, Elia's patron. Won't just stand idly by. But it would also be a huge loss for the academy to ignore a student with so much potential. In the future, it will become obvious whether he's a fraud or not. All they have to do now is see how things play out. She says there are many interesting admissions. This year, some individuals are unique, enough to need special treatment. And if Downey Campbell really is as special as he claims to be, I'm sure he'll have a role to play in the future. Later, Dowd was looking at the news, in which he was on the front page with a rather unflattering expression. And the news declared that he might be the greatest talent ever to grace the entire empire. It said he had defeated Kendrick's newest star, Mark Grave. Dowd exclaimed that these news reports were exactly like in the game. He wondered if they were serious. Then, the system announced that he had a new gift. This was because his level of trust with Ionori had risen from level 1 to 2, and the level of curiosity of many people. Wow. She's really warming up to me, isn't she? He thought. Elnori's affections had grown significantly. He began to ponder the system's influence, specifically how it gauged relationships. Curiosity. Interest. And finally, trust. Those were the stages, and the points he accumulated. Those could be traded in at the mysterious point shop. Intriguing. Right now, Elnori's curiosity meter was practically overflowing, but a nagging question lingered. Why was the final boss of the game showing such a keen interest in him? Driven by curiosity, he decided to unwrap the gift the system had bestowed upon him, a reward for earning Ionori's trust. It turned out to be a technique, a secret sword art passed down through the Latriston family. Ionori's family, to be exact. This system, he muttered to himself, is seriously showering me with rewards. Was it too good to be true? It was a family technique, belonging to what was arguably the most powerful swordsman lineage in existence. Of course, there was the catch. Her family happened to be deeply entwined with demons. But honestly, at this point, he wasn't particularly concerned. What could possibly go wrong? He's really digging this system. That is until he checked out Elia's related stats, and he noticed her curiosity level was at 4, which means it's dangerously close to becoming an interest. He thought the system was supposed to work by villains having a positive impact on him, but Ilia isn't a villain, quite the opposite actually. She's the main heroine of the game. Just then, a knock echoed on his door, and a voice called out asking if he was in there. He instantly recognized it. That voice? It sounds familiar. It was Elia herself, asking if she could come in. Daoud's mind raced. Why is she here? He figured maybe if he stayed perfectly still, she'd just go away. But Ilia's voice cut through his thoughts. I know you're in there. So if you don't open the door soon, I'm going to break it down. He asked if she was crazy, but Elia just said that she wanted to discuss something with him. That's all. But Daoud asked if he could know before she came in, and he leaned against the door and said he just wanted, I don't know, to have a chat, to get to know each other better. And Daoud wondered what the heck was going on here. And later, Hay was walking through the halls to get back to his room. And she thought that maybe she had put too much pressure on him. But hey, he could have just had a chat with her. And she thought that earlier. Well, she was actually pretty weird in her approach. And she thought she didn't know how to make friends with men. Until she bumped into someone else walking down the corridor. She helped the person who had dropped their bag. But when she looked up, she realized it was Ionori. She asked if Ionori was hurt. And then, just looking at Ionori, Leah remembered the nightmare that is a Tristan. And she became very tense, shaking all over. And instinctively, she grabbed her sword. She thought about how much she hated the presence of a Tristan. She was already strategizing for a fight. Could she even win against Ionori? But instead of attacking, Ionori simply offered her hand to help her up. And of course, Leah thought this was very, weird coming from Ionori. Since when does a Tristan have manners? Is what she was probably thinking. But really, she wasn't offering him her hand. She just wanted her bag back. And he returned it, still shaking. Poor guy, he wondered. How was this woman involved with Dowd? And before leaving, Leah told Ionori to turn at the next right. Because that's where Dolly Campbell's room is. And Eleanor asked, wait a minute, how do you know where his room is? She's already implied that she's been with him recently. Ooh, the plot thickens. But Eleanor pressed, asking, for what purpose? What's your angle, Leah? And Leah wondered why Eleanor suddenly got so hostile out of nowhere. Talk about a mood swing. Leah brushed it off, saying it's just friendship between new students. Nothing to see here, she says, but we're not buying it. But Ionori dropped a bombshell. New students are forbidden from relationships with the opposite sex. Well, this just got interesting. Elia pointed out that she'd never seen that rule anywhere, to which Nori replied that he had just made it up. So, according to his brand new rule, she wasn't allowed to go to his room. Elia couldn't help but ask, "Wait a minute, President. What's your relationship with him?" She coolly stated that there was none, but she warned, "Don't you forget what I just said." However, Elia remembered something Daoud had said, that he even liked Aonori in the middle of combat. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was definitely something between those two. She realized she needed information intel. She had to get closer to him. Then, the day of the class task test arrived. It was a test specifically designed to meticulously analyze every aspect of a student. David figured that each class is split into groups after a one-on-one duel, and since he managed to defeat the warrior candidate, that was Elia, he was placed in the highest level group. Everyone else seems proud and excited. He's the only one who looks worried, because the biggest problem is still Elia. He remembers trying to distance himself from her yesterday, but they're in the same group. Seriously? And her curiosity level about him has jumped from 4 to 5. David thinks this doesn't make the slightest bit of sense, but he suddenly remembers, wait a minute! There were snacks and a letter delivered to him last night. It said, "Good luck on your exam tomorrow." Definitely sounds like a stalker. But could it have been Elia or Nori? David knows he needs to focus on the test. For now, though, things shouldn't get too chaotic, because this is part of the main storyline. And at the present moment, the system indicated that Elnori's trust level was at 2, which meant her character event would begin soon. And then Elnori introduced herself, saying it was a pleasure to meet everyone. She mentioned she's in charge of this test. And Doughty thought, this is no coincidence. This crap. Doughty figured Elnori's event was supposed to happen today. Except she's literally overseeing the students. In the game's main scenario, something is supposed to happen during this test. If it doesn't, it could be a huge problem. But of course, all of this was only happening because that table from that council. She became quite intrigued to see how Daoud would react to all this. So, Nori was stationed there just as a precaution, and Nori explained that they'd first head to the testing area, and he'd answer all their questions there. Naturally, the new students were pretty impressed with the place, entering it, saying this temple, "This dungeon is really cool on the inside." Then Ilya asked if Nori would answer questions here. He said no, and wondered if this was part of the test. Daoud thought that even he could answer that. The entrance is sealed because the energy is gone. This isn't a test, it's someone's trap. Then the system announced that the Aonori event had started, and some people were already trying to escape. His first instinct was to hide, to avoid getting tangled up in any danger. But then Doughty stopped to think. He realized everyone here is probably a key character from the game's main characters party. And if he remembers the game's storyline correctly, this is where they all first met. The place where they joined forces for the very first time. In other words, the people in this room are all incredibly important to the game's story. Doughty pointed to the map. He announced that he believed the central hall was the most logical place for them to go. The others were surprised. There was a map here the whole time? But Daoud explained that there should be equipment and supplies located in the center. And more importantly, it's a large open area, making it much easier to defend against an ambush than being squeezed into cramped hallways. Daoud mentioned that the president, Nori, and Elia must have felt the same way. They aren't the only ones here after all. Daoud announced he'd be taking the other route, but Elia questioned his decision, asking why. Daoud simply stated, "Because it's necessary." Elia countered that it leads in the complete opposite direction from the center. Daoud replied that he couldn't explain right now, but it's incredibly important that he does this. Daoud thought to himself that it truly was crucial. He wasn't lying, because nothing is more important than saving your own skin, right? And so he headed down the corridor alone. He pondered if perhaps defeating him one day had lent some credibility to his words. Now he just plans to lay low until the whole thing blows over. So, the assassination target. But it was actually Honori herself then? He thought nobody would pay him any mind, but boy was he wrong. Because someone's attention was definitely caught, and it was someone asking him if he knew the way. Apparently, this guy was there to do some power maintenance, and he confessed that his eyesight isn't the best in the dark. The catch? The systems detected a seriously high threat level. Meanwhile, moving closer to the center, someone flagged Helia down. They asked if it was really okay to leave Doldy alone, all by himself. But Helia confidently replied that he must have a plan. And anyway, they have bigger fish to fry and need to worry about themselves right now, because they've just realized that assassins are lying in wait, ready to ambush them. It seems like Honore knew this was coming all along. Meanwhile, that super weird guy is still strolling along with Down. He figured the group that was further ahead had probably already been wiped out, but he convinced himself that it only happened because he wasn't there to protect them. And he also managed to fool the dog. Completely. The dog told him that right in front of him was the equipment room, so he could take care of what he needed to do. Meanwhile, that assassin was sizing him up, thinking that as a professional killer, he had the skill to gauge someone's threat level just by observing their movements. He pegged Daoud as a complete newbie. His plan was to take out Daoud first and then deal with the real target. But of course, Daoud had already picked up on all of this. The assassin then removed his mask and disguise and sincerely thanked Daoud for his help. Now he's about to hand over the reward. Daoud breathes a sigh. "Oh my God, what a relief," he exclaims, sounding genuinely surprised. It's just as he suspected. It's Resmed himself. The assassin is thrown for a loop. He thinks, "How in the world does he know my name?" Daoud confidently states that if it had been someone stronger, he would have been in serious trouble. "But," he smirks, "since it's you, I'm good," he admits, with a hint of nervous laughter, that he's genuinely relieved. "You look exactly the same," he comments, "like the same old geezer that he remembers from the game." Daoud's expression turns serious as he says, "All right, let's see. Survival level should be ranked then." Resmed furrows his brow, clearly confused. What's this kid rambling on about? He wonders. He still believes that this kid is just another weakling, ripe for the picking. And with a snarl, he lunges forward, brandishing his knives, intent on ending Daoud's life right then and there. But meanwhile, elsewhere, closer to the center, the other assassins? The assassins were being easily defeated by the protagonist's group. Well, not exactly easily. It was a complete massacre of the assassins, to be honest. In the heat of the battle, Aaliyah wondered, what's Nori up to? What is she doing? But then she unleashed a powerful ability, defeating waves and waves of assassins in one fell swoop, killing them with a single devastating impact. But she left a few alive, specifically for interrogation. She warned them that if they didn't answer, she would break every single bone in their bodies. Later, with the captured assassins frozen in fear, they started answering the questions. Ayanori asked if Resmed, the assassin known as Crescent Moon, was present. The assassin replied that he couldn't say, but Ayanori simply stomped on his face, burying his head into the ground. Then, she asked the question again. The assassin is in this building. He kept pressing, wouldn't let up until the guy confessed. He practically stomped on his head until he got a yes. He's here. Helia wondered if maybe they were going a little too far, but Nori reminded her, they tried to kill you. Leonore explained that Resmed of the Crescent Moon is a terrifying assassin. He can take on the appearance of another person by killing them first. Then she asked Helia if she knew who the easiest target in the building was. And Helia finally understood what Leonore was getting at. She explained that Dog Campbell had used himself as bait to lure out the strongest enemy. These are assassins who are after Elnora. Why would they do something like this? She then asked about Helia's connection to the boy. But Elnora insisted that they have nothing. Helen wasn't quite buying that, though. Meanwhile, back in Resmed's fight, he figured he was up against a professional assassin, one with the soul of a guardian, no less. It's an anti-cutting barrier that only reacts to weapons. But perhaps magic is present everywhere here. Maybe because it's an ancient and mysterious place. This academy, but what matters to an assassin is his weapon. But then he wondered why he was getting his butt kicked right now, and by a newbie student at that. The system announced that Daoud had successfully used the Tristan technique, and he realized, wow, this kid is seriously good. Resmed wondered why this kid knew the Tristan's technique. Yeah. He realizes he probably shouldn't have messed with this guy. So he asks Daoud who exactly he is. Daoud realizes that his deadly charm skill has been activated because the villain is genuinely impressed by his plan. The detailed plan. Daoud then thinks that thanks to the game system, you can't use a weapon in a safe zone, which is why he lured the assassin here. Resmed says he has no intention of talking, he might as well just kill him now. But Daoud replies that he doesn't want to kill him. He wants Resmed to go back alive and spread the word, to stay away from the law of Tristan, and to tell everyone that even an assassin of his caliber almost died trying. Daoud doesn't know exactly who ordered this hit on her, but it's likely they won't give up easily, and if it keeps happening, the likelihood of the gray demon inside her breaking free will increase dramatically. So he has to eliminate that possibility from the very beginning. He can't take that risk. Resmed then asked, what if he comes back after that? Daoud responded that they'd just have to face him again next time, because next time, he'd also be protecting her. That's his priority. Resmed followed up, questioning if Nori was really that important to him. Doldy admitted that, yes, you could say she is. She means a lot to him. But suddenly, his deadly charm activated once more, and Nori's affection and favoritism towards him skyrocketed, exponentially, over and over again. The effect was overwhelming. Doldy definitely wasn't prepared for this sudden surge. But when he turned around, there she was. Nori, standing right before him, and it seemed like she had overheard the entire conversation. Oh no. The next morning at the academy, The secretary was saying what a complete mess everything was. She said she finally understood why Chancellor Aller is so furious. But they have to track down the mastermind behind all of this immediately. She already has so much on her plate. She mentioned that the academy is in complete chaos internally, and it's been confirmed that there's a spy working for the Diotra. The Diotra? And the timing of the assassin's appearance. Then she turned to Yunori and said that she's aware of the political maneuvering directed against her. But considering this is the second assassination attempt in such a short time, these people must be incredibly determined. However, she said this incident felt very different from the first. Whoever is behind this, it's certain it'll happen again. There's no doubt about it. And those people who were with her, they were all congratulated for what happened. Everyone praised their actions because each assassin was subdued, taken down effectively, without a single casualty. No one got hurt. The problem, though, is Dale himself. Dale Campbell. He was the one involved in everything. The one who participated. But there isn't a record of a recommendation for him. It's strange. There's no reason why he shouldn't have one, which is even weirder. But she's not sure why he doesn't. What's the deal? It's almost as if he's deliberately trying to stay out of sight, to keep a low profile, away from the academic team. And Nori seemed to pick up on that. She noticed it too, but not. I want to help the academic team catch Dale, she declares. And Nori, all this time, just kept saying it. Over and over. I wonder. And the other one said that if she said it one more time, she was ready to chuck something right at him. And Nori just shrugged and said, go for it. But when she wound up and let fly with that flask, Nori caught it without even breaking a sweat. The woman huffed, complaining that Nori's been totally out of it all day. Why else, she grumbled, would I have missed so badly? But Unori pointed out that if she doesn't open up about what's distracting her, no one can really help. So Unori hesitantly confessed that there's someone who's caught her eye. The woman's eyes widened. Who exactly? Unori blushed and admitted, I just said his name. Huh? The secretary gasped. Doe Campbell? You're telling me you're smitten with that hayseed? No. Leonore protested. That's not quite what I said. It's not like I'm that interested yet. And the secretary was like, wait, what? She was still processing. What would the Archduke think if he knew about this? She wondered aloud. Leonore just shrugged it off. Oh, that old coot would definitely get upset, she said. But then she clarified. I have absolutely zero interest in Dole, none whatsoever. The other woman sighed in relief. Thank goodness, she thought. But she added a word of caution. Regardless of his methods, the way you've been treating Unori has made Dold a little suspicious. She warned Unori, you should be more careful. As the head of the household, you need to think about appearances. Unori conceded, you're right. But, she added with a glint in her eye, I want to test him too. I'm going to keep a very close watch on him. Later that evening, in his room, Daoud was engrossed in an official document from the academy. He frowned, deep in thought. What does this mean? He wondered. It was written that, unfortunately, Daoud Campbell doesn't have a defined class at the moment, and the academic team is in the middle of a project to obtain great results. He said that he can expect good news in the future. And Daoud was like, I don't want to wait for anything. Just stick me in any class. Whatever. But he figured, even if he's following the rules, he still shouldn't be placed in a special class. Like, why not Halia's group? Why are they excluding him like that? And the system chimed in, saying his first main mission was completed, but now he needs to resolve the incident. That's going to happen during the freshman reception ceremony. And the reward? Exclusive equipment materials. Score. So he's explaining that the freshman reception ceremony is where our protagonist's class will be officially welcomed. You know, things like archer, warrior, mage, priest, and so on. Your class specializations will be determined by your focus, just like Halia, who uses a sword. Our guy Dowda, he'll need to focus on something strength-based as well. That way, he'll get equipment materials that match his skill set. But his main problem right now, Nori is already at affection level 5 for him. Yikes. And Hela, she's at interest level 5. Double yikes. And he thought about the game's final boss, the main character and the events of the main quest. It all seemed to be converging at once, ready for him to handle. He had a feeling that something huge was definitely going to happen. But then, he caught sight of the newest reward he'd received. He'd been granted an ability, duplication, the power to copy another's skill. He instantly realized how ridiculously powerful this ability was. This, he wondered, if he could copy the skill of a final boss, it would be insane if he used it this early in the story. He could potentially steal some seriously overpowered ability down the line, although honor was at the top of the Academy's food chain. Up until now, just like the protagonist, Helia. He knows Elnori is a final boss who can grow in power. She's going to gain a lot of abilities in the future. So there's no point in using that duplication skill just yet. For now, he needs to prepare himself for an event that's happening in 3 days. Fortunately, he knows something that could help him a lot with this. So that night, he headed to the old equipment warehouse. He thinks to himself that the point shop was really useful to him because he bought an acceleration potion, a shadow mask that also increases agility, and boots, silent boots that made his steps not so detectable maybe. Then he climbed onto the warehouse roof to begin his infiltration, and he reflected that these items were a great purchase. So he began to rummage through this pile. A mountain of countless items. He figured he'd found quite a few useful things. But the most important thing he discovered just now, the ultimate treasure of the deity, an incense burner with the ancient power of 10,000 years stored within it. He thought he'd grabbed everything he needed for now, but as he pulled out this artifact, the entire pile started to become unstable and came crashing down on him. Oh man, he thought. I knew something bad was going to happen. Sure enough, as the mountain of treasures tumbled down, he realized who was at the very top of it all. Uriya. This is Uriya, the Grey Hunter, the boss of Chapter 2 of the game, nicknamed the Cursed Sword Goddess. And Dog figured that the item he'd just picked up originally belonged to her, so it's no surprise she's here. But he didn't put two and two together fast enough. Yuri was so incredibly fast that she simply vanished from sight, and the system warned him that he was in extreme, very real danger, life-threatening danger, and the desperate fight for survival activated another Rank X ability. Dog apologized for waking her up like that, but in that instant, Yuri was already trying to kill him. He barely manages to dodge the attack. Dog realized that the first thing that triggered his ability was a simple duel against Helia, except now, it's a real life or death situation, and Daoud desperately tries to explain that it was all a misunderstanding. He wasn't trying anything while she was asleep, he insists. Daoud knows that even though his ability is ranked X, his body can't handle too much of that power, and she, wielding her sword and chain, continues to try and strike him. But he swiftly dodges everything she throws at him. Despite this, Yuri isn't giving up. Dale thinks that, thankfully, he knows what he needs to do to avoid being hit, until one of the attacks connects, striking Dale right in the face. But then, suddenly it stops, frozen in midair. Dale realizes the range is 3.5 steps. Any enemy within that distance of her will be defeated, no matter what. But in exchange, she can't take a single step forward. That's the mechanism behind Yuria's curse. And she asked if he could take a little step forward. And he asked her why. Why would you want me to step forward and get sliced up? And she replied that that's exactly why. Daoud realized there is no easy way for him to escape from this situation until he noticed something. This must be her personal space, since she has to stay isolated from everyone to attack. Even the faculty doesn't come here often, which means, so he asked Yuri if she wanted a cookie. And he pulled out the energy-restoring cookies from the shop. Daoud thought that in this kind of situation, people are always hungry. But Yuri, she declared that she wouldn't fall for his cheap tricks. And then she asked, was he seriously trying to win her over with food? But the moment he tossed the cookie, she snatched it up like an eager puppy. Daoud then realized that it's impossible to reason with someone who's hungry. Yuria admitted she now believes it was all a big misunderstanding. Later, Daoud confessed that he almost died. This is such a relief, but Yuria then asked him who he was and why he was there. Daoud explained that he was asked to feed her. Someone he knows asked him to take care of her. Yuria pressed him. Exactly who is this person? Daoud thought that leaving things vague might be useful for him down the line. After all, it's not every day you meet a Yuria, so he told her not to worry, because her sister is doing remarkably well in the Holy Empire. He assured her that the Emperor wouldn't bother them anytime soon, for a good while anyway. But it goes without saying that she'll have to stay here for the time being. He promised he'd be back to help her. He mused that Yuria is originally from the Holy Empire, and the reason she was hiding out at the academy. Well, it was precisely because of the Empire. The sword Yuria wields is known as a cursed item, an evil blade. That's why she suffers from the curse of 3 steps. So, there's probably no harm in telling someone about the only family she has left. She should be okay from now on, after feeling a glimmer of hope. The next morning during class, the teacher explained that the academy building itself is an arcane structure. She said that all the students would need to choose their classes, both a main class and a secondary one. This would happen during the welcoming ceremony, which was just a few days away. Cavalry, sorcery, engineering, production, clergy. They learned about these 5 departments, right? Then, one of the students asked if the tribal association also shares the same views on the Holy Empire. The teacher confirmed that was indeed the case. They teach the same things as the Empire. She warned them not to even think about transferring out of here. Our hero thought. This must be the tutorial event. This is where they receive more information about this world, the lore and all that good stuff. But he can't just skip this tutorial section. Otherwise, all the careful planning he's done so far would be for nothing, he thinks to himself. Just like in the game, the students always ask the right questions. Sure enough, one of the students asks the head of the house, Ophelia, is this the famous Void Zone? Indeed it is, she replies. But it's a restricted area for you students. Our hero thinks, the Void Zone. It's a remnant of a historical war. A war between heaven and hell that once raged on this very land. The Void Zone was the place where the messengers of the gods and the warriors who received their divine power
bound the demons.
Hundreds of years have passed since then, but the clash between the energies of death and divinity still lingers. This area, she stressed, is of extreme importance. Her voice lowered, a hint of dread creeping in. If those demons were to ever break free from their prison, then the Empire. She paused, gathering her thoughts. The Holy Empire, along with the Tribal Alliance? That's why they created the Golden Triangle. They keep a close watch on the empty area. And that's why academies like Elephant and all the others are located here. A student, ever the curious one, raised his hand. Could we maybe get a little closer? Just to take a peek? He asked hopefully. Ms. Tophalia considered the request. Staying right at the edge of the protective barrier. In-on is permitted, she announced. You're perfectly safe within its boundaries. Daoud's face lit up. Awesome, he thought. Okay, so the plan is lunch, then head back. He winked at the audience. But I have a little something extra planned, you guys. So later on, the group made their way to a spot a little closer to that ominous barrier. So explained that angels? These aren't your cute cherubic angels. We're talking beings who can move mountains and dry up oceans. And like any powerful force, they have a hierarchy. At the top, we've got the seraphim. They're the ultimate powerhouse angels, and one of them created this very barrier we're relying on for protection. Ophelia points out that this means they can actually have lunch here. Imagine that! Dold realized it too. Without this Seraphim's barrier, this whole academy couldn't exist. They're that close to a seriously dangerous zone. Talk about living on the edge. But Daoud, bless his heart, pulls Ophelia aside. He asks if he could maybe eat somewhere a little quieter, away from the crowd. I'm just a little overwhelmed, he admits. Poor guy. And Ophelia's thinking, ugh, these students are being so downright cruel to Daoud. It's all fallout from what happened. So she reassures him, of course, he can go, just not too far. And then we hear some other students muttering under their breath. That jerk from the training field? That caipirinha? It's getting a little cocky. Just because it got a little bit of attention, it's become so arrogant. But then Dode starts to use his incense. He used a powder made from unicorn horn, a phoenix feather, and a fan made of Cora berry. With that, the preparations were complete. Then he blows out the incense smoke, and a magic forms right in front of him, like a portal. A guide's way. Daude wonders if he hasn't made some sort of mistake in his spell. Has he done something wrong? Then he remembers that he came all this way just to use this ritual, because it allows him to reach beings that normal people can't even dream of contacting. It's a connection to something beyond the mundane. So before him, it's like a gateway has opened up to beings, to divine entities, folks. And Daude starts to hear these divine beings. They were chatting amongst themselves, and the guys were asking where the reinforcements were. To get this whole thing organized, one of the angels asked if recruit knows what dig mean, right? But they did say this ground is really tough, huh? But then the angels came across that portal, and they asked me, who's this human here? And the others, seeing Daud through the portal, said he'd been watching for a while now. But at least he's quiet. He hasn't said anything yet. And the angel said that was for the best. So he wouldn't interfere with his work. Then one of the angels asked why. Recruit had stopped digging, and he said, I'll be right back, sir, and went back to digging super fast. Suddenly a truck pulls up, complete with a megaphone, to deliver the divine bricks they'd ordered. And they brought a lot. A lot of bricks. A woman who seemed to be in charge asked why he was always eating. The angel shot back, asking if she was the driver. She wasn't. Then save your breath for driving, instead of telling people what to do. Another person in command chimed in, urging everyone to get to work. All right, people, let's move it. Hurry! One of the recruits immediately took off running, eager to obey the order. Another angel asked the captain if the food supply had arrived yet. She replied that it hadn't. It's late. Just wait a little longer. Doughty thought to himself, there must be a reason the angels don't just descend however they please into the human world. If he were to describe angels, they're sort of like a military force. They have a hierarchy, command positions, and the other world in this game has its own rules. Encountering angels is only possible after Chapter 2. Directly interacting with high-level angels is only possible much later than that. But Dowd knows exactly what they want. It's something very simple and basic, and at that moment, Dowd sets up a little picnic in front of himself. Like a little picnic, and the angels watching him eat through the portal, were getting envious. They had been working there for so long without eating. But the other one told them to focus on work, and Daud asked the angelic gentleman to eat a little something before returning to work. What do you think? Otherwise, they'll wear themselves out too quickly. So he made an offering of food to the angels, and they were truly delighted to receive it. The guy asked if he really did that, and he replied, "It's a 10-minute break for everyone." The others were impressed, saying how kind this human was, and the dog thought that the laws of the other world differ greatly from the laws of the physical world. So, one portion for him is more than enough for all the angels. Later, the angels said they ate their fill. It was a real luxury. And the angel asked if the incense nearby, next to the... He used it to contact the angels, right? It said he would bless him. Then give it to him here. And the angel asked what he desires. He's going to try and do things as best as he possibly can. And Daud wondered if he even needed a formal negotiation at all. Official, that is. Daud was thinking about all the negotiation tactics he'd prepared. But in this game, there was an easy way too. Then the angel asks Daud, wondering, "Why are you treating this person so well?"
It's not.
And the angel said that just by looking at Daud, he knows that he's a person who is well informed, and said that Daud has a skill that hasn't been fully developed yet, but it will be incredibly beneficial to him in the future. So, he needs to invest in it now. Daud wondered if the angel was talking about the gift he had received, or perhaps his unique characteristic, the fact that he's loved by the villainesses. And the angel revealed that this gift is far more powerful than he even realizes, though its true potential depends entirely on how he chooses to wield this incredible ability. It even managed to turn a monstrously cruel creature into someone friendly towards him. Dodge figured that once he secured that, he could delve into all the strategies at his disposal. He was determined to find the most optimized path for his own survival. He would make sure of it. Another angel commented that an ordinary person would be paralyzed by fear in this situation. Yet, Dowd is calmly formulating incredibly complex strategies. He remarked that he sees him as a man of great intellect and information. He expressed that they wouldn't have to worry about him too much. And the bald angel said, "All right, his blessing is now over." And D-Day replied, "Yes, of course. Thank you." Just then, the sergeant gets called back to work. His break is over, and Dowd was left wondering what he meant by that cruel monster, the one who's being friendly with him. And Dowd pondered, how could it be? Me, a man of great training. And then the angel told Dowd to believe in himself. He'd been recognized by an angel. Then that channel of communication closed. But Dowd thought, I'm just working this hard because I don't want to die. Still, he'd received advice from an angel. That's not something you can just ignore. And because his incense was blessed, he received 2 new abilities. The asceticism. This relic allows him to temporarily convert mana. Temporarily. To boost the user's stats. He also got a protective shield. Also rank C protector. Using a small amount of mana. To create a one-time use protection barrier. And Diode thought that angel gave him some pretty useful blessings. Actually, this shield increases constitution, which is related to health. Therefore, it has a direct effect on survivability. Since his desperate survival can explode his stats, he has to make good use of it when it happens. And the most important part, also, is his evolution in the world of his. These are things that can be developed. Things that can naturally improve performance. He thinks getting something like this is incredibly lucky. The problem is, he still needs to use mana. But he doesn't have any relevant abilities yet, and if he can't use mana right now, he'll have to resort to temporary measures, which is exactly why he's in this place now. He was a little distracted there for a moment, talking to someone about forming a 2-person group. A duo, basically. And the man asked if he even knows what a duo means. Right, where's his partner anyway? Dode replied that she will be here. They'll be here soon, he says confidently. But then the other guy wonders, who'd bother showing up for a guy as popular as you? He finishes, a hint of skepticism in his voice. Daoud just smirks. I'm not kidding, he replies. This place is going to be packed any minute now. Daoud then reveals his partner isn't just popular. He's super popular. Checking his watch, Daoud states, according to my calculations, she should be appearing right about and right on cue in walks Helia. She asks, tilting her head slightly. Is this the monster research department by any chance? Dodge greets her with a shy hello. His voice barely above a whisper. He admits to himself that it's true. Originally, he wanted nothing to do with the main heroine, but something changed his mind, especially after getting some advice from that old Angel and Dodge. He asks if what she said earlier about getting to know each other even better still stands. The girl, taken aback, scratches her head. She thinks it over. She remembers her duel, being forced to stay away from him. From Eunora, and Dog is standing there, waiting for her answer. Helen wonders, Just how crazy is this guy? She wonders if he's planned this whole thing, waited for all the events to unfold, just to say this to her now. Later, in the Academy's simulation dungeon, as they enter, Helia asks Daoud if he's sure about this. Daoud tells her to have a little faith in him. She doesn't want to be his friend. She remembers that when they first met, she tried to hit him, right? She said, of course, because she was the one who actually got hit. And Dog said, if you want to be friends, then do what I tell you to do right now. He said that at 9 o'clock. And right then, a wolf leaped out at them. But Helia, thanks to Dog's warning, managed to hit it just in time. She was so grateful for his heads up. Dog guided her throughout the fight, giving her tips and directions. Moving on to the next phase. Bats came swarming towards them. Dog told her that the bats' weak spot was their necks. He warned her, don't aim for the wings. Helia did exactly as she was told. She took down those bats like it was nothing. But then Helia asked, could you maybe stop talking for a second and actually help in this fight? But Dog immediately warned her about 2 daggers coming her way. One from the right, and another from the left, and she managed to dodge both with ease. As they navigated the onslaught of enemies, he was guiding her, telling her exactly what she needed to do to defeat them. He warned her to dodge the arrows, and that an attack was coming up right behind her. Helen reacted just in the nick of time, managing to block the blow from a massive golem. Then Helen asked the question we were all thinking. If Daoud knows so much about these enemies, wouldn't it be better if he were out here fighting? They really would get through this much faster with his help. Dode admits that he'd love to help, but he's playing a really terrible character with absolutely awful stats. Besides, there's no real danger in a simulated fight, so his desperate survival skill won't even activate. It's a special ability that only kicks in when he's truly on the ropes. These enemies are artificial, programmed to take predetermined actions. And since desperate survival isn't exactly an omnipotent skill, he needs to boost his stats, and fast. Meanwhile, Helena is fuming at Dodge. He starts to wonder if he's being too harsh with her. Suddenly, she slashes in his direction, but it was actually to take out a golem that was attacking him. Phew! Immediately after that attack, confetti explodes everywhere. The dungeon announces that her speed was incredible. It even says she's broken the previous record. Helena's completely bewildered, wondering what's going on. She broke a record in a dungeon designed for 2 people. She did it alone. Dodge, ever the down player, suggests it must have been luck. He secretly thinks that despite how it might look, he's actually pretty awesome at this game. He turns to her and says, the next area is going to be a bit tougher, but we can keep going. That's the last straw for Helena. She's furious. Meanwhile, their attempt was being closely watched. This is the Dean of Sorcery at the Academy, and she commented that the 2 of them were doing exceptionally well. It looks like they'll need to allocate more funds for combat simulations next year, and she asked what Conrad thought about that. Conrad replied that he agrees, and inquired if it was designed by the department. An employee confirmed that it was, but Conrad stated that, more importantly, he got incredibly lucky because the student he was observing performed remarkably well in this dungeon, and Percy asked if that girl, who is a candidate to be the next warrior. Conrad said no. He's got his eye on that kid, David Campbell. And Percy asked why. That kid's just a hustler. He's just trying to get close to the candidate. And Percy asked why Conrad is so fixated on this kid, huh? But Conrad said that sorcerers are always focused heavily on the simple things. But it's not. He said that Helia would never have been able to break that record if it weren't for Dold. Conrad thought that any normal person who didn't analyze the situation would see that Helia is doing everything in this fight. But Conrad realized that the key to everything going right was Dold, the positioning, the way he gives orders with perfect timing, and his ability to keep track of everything in combat. Every single action he takes demonstrates a perfect understanding of the situation. Conrad thinks Daoud is calculating every move. He thought Daoud acted like he was already a war veteran, and he asked Percy if she wanted to make a bet. Meanwhile, back in the dungeon, Conrad uses the microphone to speak to them both. He introduces himself as Conrad Valtadore from the cavalry department, and he says he was quite impressed after watching them in the dungeon simulation. He mentions that he and the Dean of Sorcery have decided to make a bet. The question is whether they can break the record that the 2 of them set as freshmen, and if they manage to do it, it will give them the right to make any request of Percy. Percy wondered why Conrad would go this far, and Conrad continued, saying that if they feel overwhelmed by it, he won't force them, especially since their current track record is already quite impressive, and this request is almost impossible to achieve. But Dowd confidently stated that it's all good. Of course, they can do it. Percy was not happy to hear that, but Conrad is betting on their success, so they can get started. Meanwhile, Eonori's secretary asked what was going on. For goodness sake, she understands that Eonori came here to clear her mind, but Eonori responded, just get me a little water, will you? She said there was something she wanted to remember, and the training grounds were completely destroyed. Eonori mentioned that when she was younger, her mother taught her some movements. She doesn't remember them very well, which is why she's reviewing them from the beginning. She recalled that there's a dark rumor about the Tristone lineage. It's a double-edged sword. this whisper that clings to their name. One edge is the inhuman prodigy that the Tristans supposedly possess. The other, a far more terrifying possibility, is that occasionally there can be an explosion of madness, beyond explosive displays. Of violence, it's a degradation of sanity itself. That's the underlying reason why, despite the incredible achievements of the Tristan house, their final years are often filled with misery. Then Nori said there's nothing to worry about. She's not dwelling on any of that right now. And then the secretary mentioned that she wanted to talk about some information that Nori herself requested earlier. She just overheard one of her disciples mentioning that Dodge Campbell is currently with the next candidate, the warrior. Eunora asks, "Who exactly?" And the secretary replies, "She's the one who fought Dodge." Eunora then asks, "So, they're paired up?" The secretary confirms, yes. That's because the simulated battle requires pairs, she explains. Eunora says, "I see." She stands up and tells the secretary to take her there, but the secretary says she wasn't planning on that. Meanwhile, in the simulated dungeon, Helia asks Daude, "What do you plan to do from now on?" She's aware that he's highly skilled, but is it really worth it to take on the challenge of breaking the all-time record? Daoud was all in, saying, "Yeah, it's totally worth a shot." Helena, a little impressed but also skeptical, commented that his confidence was, well, it was something else. So she pressed him. "Do you at least have a solid plan for this crazy stunt?" Daoud's internal logic was, it's way easier to exploit the monster's weaknesses because these artificial creatures have predictable movement patterns. But obviously he couldn't just spill the beans to her. That wouldn't be very romantic, would it? So smooth as he could manage, Daoud spun a little tale for her. "It's because you're here with me," he said with a charming smile. "That's why I know I can pull this off." Helia, unimpressed, just raised an eyebrow. I don't buy it." Then, from off-screen, Conrad's voice boomed. "All right, team, ready to rock?" A chorus of "yeah" echoed back from inside the dungeon. Conrad announced,
Good news, everyone. We can now tweak the difficulty settings on the fly.
for the final session, and they'll earn bonus points for every record they manage to break. Dog suggests cranking up the difficulty to the highest level. Percy pipes up, saying she doesn't believe in this newbie. She even admires their motivation, but this is taking things too far. The highest difficulty, it's practically like a real combat situation. There's a genuine chance they could die trying. Daoud chimes in, saying it's worth trying anyway. Conrad agrees, saying, all right, they'll comply with his demand. Daoud tells her not to get so worked up. Because the milk's already been spilled, there's no use crying over it. Percy sits down with a cup of coffee and says she doesn't believe in Conrad. Conrad points out that she's acting like it's her first time. It wasn't them who broke that record, Percy points out. Not for the first time together, but Percy's also quick to add, this is completely different. They could actually die this time, she says. A hint of worry in her voice. Conrad, ever the stoic, replies, we'll see. He adds with an air of confidence, I'm sure Daoud has his reasons for being so sure of himself. Daoud's confidence is catching, it seems. Conrad continues, and even if they do get into real trouble, we'll just go save them. Simple as that. No big deal. He shrugs, trying to downplay the situation. But at that exact moment, a horde of monsters surges towards our two heroes. An overwhelming wave of claws and teeth. Conrad's voice cuts through the chaos. Killer mode activated. He barks out a challenge. Prove your worth. Ellen, watching the carnage unfold, is clearly not happy about this. And Percy and her subordinate are visibly on edge, their nerves frayed. But Daoud's internal system detects the imminent danger, and just in the nick of time, activates his desperate survival skill. What will happen next? Then, with a single swift strike, he cleanly severed the neck of a massive creature. Conrad, utterly impressed, exclaimed that this was exactly what he'd been hoping for. He turned to Percy, asking if she'd witnessed it. Helen chimed in, saying she knew he had it in him. Meanwhile, as Daoud was mowing down every creature in his path, Percy, bewildered, questioned how he was doing it. All this time, she said, Daoud was completely useless, but Conrad countered, suggesting he was just pretending. Conrad added that he didn't blame Percy for feeling that way. He confessed he would have reacted the same. He wouldn't have believed it if he hadn't seen Dowdy's skills evolve, both before and throughout the simulation. As time goes on in the simulation, the monsters grow stronger, but the students' abilities increase as well, meaning they're leveling up simultaneously. So both of them were effectively taking the enemies down. All of the creatures with such ease. Except Helia. She alone had to block a tremendously powerful blow. Only that opened up an opportunity for Daoud to attack, and he unleashed the Tristan Sword technique. He used the Fox Assault, striking several vital points on the creature's body simultaneously, and Professor Conrad congratulated them on their incredible strength. Daoud Campbell and Helia Christiana, they'd managed to break the all-time record. But that creature, the one they thought was dead, it was still alive. Helia tried to warn them, but it was too late. Luckily, Professor Conrad swooped in, obliterating the creature, and he spoke sternly. You too? It seems you've set an unbreakable record. Just imagine they possess the raw power to wipe out artificial elephant-like monsters, like they're just mowing the lawn. And Conrad was truly grateful for their combined efforts. He even told Percy that he'd won the bet. So later on, after they emerge from the simulation dungeon, they receive an official document from the Academy. This gives them the right to request just about anything from the Dean of Sorcery. Helia exclaims that this is incredibly impressive. Daoud agrees, saying it's definitely true. It's not something that just any freshman can access. But then, Helia turns to Daoud and asks why. He's always so remarkably calm, especially during combat. He tilts his head, a little confused, and asks, "How do you mean?" Helia waves her hand dismissively. "Oh, never mind." Whatever the situation, he always acted as if he already knew how things would play out. He had this air about him, like he'd planned everything before the fight even started. And Daoud thinks, of course, it's because he already knows everything. Then Helia put her hand out and said something. It's like what friends do. They do this kind of thing. A high five. And Daoud said sincerely, but when he did that, her curiosity only grew even more. She said she'll see him tomorrow. So until then, someone asked Daoud if he can tell if she's being friendly or just plain weird. And Daoud said he thinks the same thing. But the thought bubble popped. Hold up, he mentally scrambled. Who is saying all this? He snapped back to reality and realized it was Nori, standing right there beside him with an unreadable expression. Nori was casually dropping a bomb. So, Daoud, you got a thing for the new girl? Daoud's internal temperature spiked about 20 degrees. He was a mess. Okay, Daoud thought, assessing the situation. His desperate survival instinct wasn't going off like a fire alarm. So it probably meant Nori wasn't about to pull a knife or anything. Hopefully. But he had a sinking feeling Nori might be getting the wrong idea. Like romantically wrong. As in, she thought they were a thing. Nori's voice cut through his panicked thoughts. I'm only asking this one more time. Her gaze was intense. Do you like that new girl? Suddenly, the system decided to join the party, blaring an alert. Danger detected. She's the student council president. Daoud stammered out. Student council president. Just saying the words made his palms sweat. But the truth was, he's dedicated all this time to training with Helia. Truth be told, training with her was all he ever really wanted. Then, out of the blue, Nori asks that question so suddenly, Daoud can't help but think, what's he playing at? He sounded so pathetic. There's no way that approach is going to work. And then Nori actually asks Daoud if he's missed her during all this time apart. He stammers, clearly flustered. Yes, that's correct. He can't help but wonder, why am I acting so damn nervous? What's gotten into me? Nori then says he understands Daoud's feelings because he remembers Daoud saving him on that train, doesn't he? And tells him to just stay focused on their priorities. Got it? Daoud is left wondering, what priority is she talking about? He wonders. But Honoré delivered a letter to him. How intriguing, and told him not to worry. That's definitely something to think about. She'd only come to deliver this to him. Straight to the point, then. Daoud starts to wonder, what could it be? He asks himself if it's a love letter, oh la la, or a duel challenge. The plot thickens. He thinks that none of this happened in the original story. This is new territory. So there's no way he can predict what's going to happen next. It's anyone's guess.
And it's Nori!
Who says she was planning on giving this to him tomorrow? Suspense. But emphasize that he should definitely open it when he's alone. Now that's a clue if I've ever heard one. Daoud, carefully examining the letter, simply says, okay. So nonchalant. Later that evening, Daoud has a creeping feeling that maybe he shouldn't have read that letter. Oh! His hunch that Nori wants him to be her partner. A partner for what, though? That's because tomorrow is the freshman welcome party, and things are clearly about to get interesting. He initially thought becoming her partner wouldn't be such a big deal. Easy peasy, he might have thought. All he'd have to do is spend some time with her, mingle a bit during the welcome party. No biggie, right? Well, here's the twist. There was a penalty if he dared to refuse her generous offer. Not only would her affection for him plummet faster than a lead balloon, but it could also make the jilted party, let's just say, a little less friendly. That's not good. And just as he's processing this, a knock at the door. He opens it, and lo and behold, it's Helia herself. I hoped it would be you, she says, with a hopeful glint in her eye. She then extends a hand, offering him a letter. His internal monologue? Oh, no, not again. His heart probably started doing the tango. It seems someone else is throwing their hat in the ring, asking him to be their date for the party. Helia reveals that she'd decided to make this move after the battle. From their simulation, she said she had to run. Get out of here thanks to Nori. But she jumped from the dorm and told him to read it quickly. And Daoud wondered why. Why, there are so many strange people in this world. And Daoud is thinking it must be another request to be a partner. But it's possible it's something else. He's really hoping it's something else. But when he opened the letter, That's exactly what it was, a request to be his partner at the party. Which means it's a duel to see who gets to be with him between the final boss and the main character of the game. And he's stuck right in the middle of it all. The very thing he wanted to avoid. Because nothing like this ever happened in the game's main storyline. They couldn't have given him at least one easy choice, huh? If he chooses Nori, he'll be seen as the villain by the main character. And if he chooses the main character, he'll earn the hostility of the game's final boss. He might even die because of it. And if he refuses both, he's completely lost. This must have happened because they're both still in the interested phase.
And that's the problem.
But what if he accepts both invitations? And on that very night, it happened. The welcome ball for the new students took place. Each class was guided by a professor, separated by class type. And the ballroom was truly extravagant and packed. Helia commented that there were so many people. It's so hot in here. She feels like she's trapped in a tin can. She thanks her date for coming with her. And in the end, it was Dolda himself who did. But from the looks of it, he's acting a bit strange, to be honest, and showing off a bit too much. Earlier, he bought a clone from the points shop. He figured he hadn't spent any of those points yet. So it's a worthwhile purchase. It'll be a big help to him right now. And his current mission is a double date. He can't get caught, or the mission fails, while he programs a colder personality into his clone. He thinks there are so many people at the ball. If he's exposed, it'll be really bad. But he'll only truly be caught if someone sees him and his clone together in the same place. That's when he instilled this more reserved personality into his clone. But then, in that moment, he sensed a presence, an overwhelming presence. Turns out, it was just a monster that was locked away in a cage, and Dodge remembered the main event of this ball, which is that this monster that they're using for experiments is going to escape, and the event will basically be a fight for survival. Until then, he spotted an option in the store called Pheromones, and he ended up pressing it by accident, and Nora appeared right at that moment, which made Dodge pretty nervous. And Nora asked, "What's that smell? Did you use perfume or something?" Dodge mentioned something about, I don't know. They're in the garden, right? The flowers must smell amazing. Then Nori chimed in, saying she wasn't sure exactly, but this scent was really affecting her. Daoud realized it was the purchase he had made. He tries to get it off his body, but the system informed him that the pheromone effect had already been applied to Nori, and it had made her very interested in him. Nori was thinking to herself, wondering why she hadn't noticed this about him until now. It seems like he's a lot more manly than she thought. Daoud was just thinking, "Oh, for the love of God, please stop this." Later, inside the ballroom, Dodge asked Nori why she hadn't checked out the events that was unfolding, and she said it was fine. He's going on ahead. And Dodge figured in that moment, the clone and Helia must have already crossed paths. He needs to make absolutely sure that he doesn't bump into his clone. That would be a disaster. Meanwhile, Honora was internally wrestling with her own anxieties. He had a glimmer of hope. Maybe nothing bad will actually happen if things just stay calm. Maybe all he and the clone need to do is shadow these two girls. He turned to Nori and asked, "Hey, why don't we wander over to the snack stand and grab something?" She replied, "Yes, of course." "That's a fantastic idea." And Dodge suggested, "Why don't we try some wild boar skewers? I hear they're amazing." This was because he thought that would have been the worst possible food recommendation. Can you imagine? But then Nori says she actually loves those. What are the odds? How did she know that? Was it pure coincidence? It had to be, right? Just a fluke. And he told himself, yeah, it was just a coincidence. Just a crazy coincidence. Meanwhile, Daoud was thinking maybe, as if she sees he doesn't like the wild boar. Then he started stalling, taking his sweet time eating it. His reasoning? He thought that this way, he could maintain a connection, but keep a safe distance at the same time. It's a delicate balance. More importantly, he's got to make absolutely sure his clone and Helia stay far away from each other, as far away as humanly possible. Then Nori pipes up, mentioning that there seem to be accessories for sale here. She asks Daoud if he needs anything. He quickly says no. But then he wonders, maybe he should buy her something? What does she think? And Daoud thought he needed to find something truly, truly terrible to diminish her affection for him. So he asks her, "Is this button nice?"
No, that won't do.
He needs the worst gift possible, but wouldn't you know it, Nori actually loved the button. She said she needed one for her uniforms, and Daoud thought, this is getting harder and harder. Later, they sat down at a table, and Nori asked Daoud what his major was at the academy, and he told her that it was. He's mainly studying technology. And she asked, "Technology? Really? Don't you want to reconsider that decision? With your talent, you could easily become a knight." But Daoud said no, there's something he desperately wants to learn. And he figured he chose the technologist path for a reason. Nori then asked him what exactly he wanted to learn. Daoud responded that it's to protect what's most precious to him. That's why he needs to learn the skill. He believes that sacred abilities are perfect for his survival. They're crucial for him to achieve the ending of his story that he wants. He tells Honori that ever since he was little, there's something he's wanted to protect. It's about the secret society incident, an event that's still yet to happen. The boss of this chapter is unusually weak, against sacred abilities. That's when Honori connects the dots and asks if it has to do with why he's getting involved and forming a relationship with her. She mentioned she's well aware of her family's curse, the Tristan curse. The one that drives everyone in her family completely out of their minds. The only way to prevent it isn't just through mental training alone. And she asked if Daoud knows the solution. And he mentioned the angel's blessing. It's a miracle where two archangels bestow their blessing upon a single person. Or so the legend says. Then Nori pointed out that it's incredibly difficult to achieve. That's why, despite the Tristan family's accomplishments, they continue to be feared. So how can Daoud be so close to her, so calmly? And why does he always protect her when someone tries to assassinate her? What are his true intentions? And Daoud said that the thing he has, it's her he needs to protect. But she questioned why he's so intent on protecting her. And Daoud said that if he doesn't protect her, he'll die too. Leonora said she knew from the beginning there was something more to it, but he really is strange. And Daoud replied that she's said that a few times now. And Daoud thought he had told her the whole truth, without any lies. Maybe that will satisfy her curiosity. Only meanwhile,
His clone was walking with Heya
through the place where the monster cages were kept, and Helia wondered why he was being so quiet. Was he angry with her? And Helia said that they stopped in the basement. Look at that. But she thought she needs to get closer to Daoud. She wants to learn more about the Tristan family. And she's also puzzled as to why Daoud is so close to Honori. Plus, she admits she has no idea how to talk to men. I don't know. She doesn't know how to do anything. But she also wonders, what is this place? Especially since the monsters they're studying in class are actually alive. She says to Daoud that they seem like experiments for the academy, but she also thinks the professors are incredibly irresponsible. How could they agree to keep monsters in the basement, all crammed together like that? And she noticed some really big creatures down there too. They look seriously dangerous. She even realized that one of the monsters wasn't even tied up or in shackles. Just then, she noticed, too late. It turns out there was an explosive device in that cage. When the massive explosion went off, Daoud's clone heroically shielded her from the blast. The force of the explosion was so great, it was felt all the way in the main hall. And of course, everyone was thrown into an uproar. Helia frantically asked Daoud if he was okay, and then demanded, "Why did you do that?" The Daoud clone simply replied, "It was my job." But Helia gave him a very strange look. And then in that moment, he fell unconscious. The explosion had taken its toll. But then, those enormous creatures started closing in on her, grabbing a steel pipe. She whispered a heartfelt thanks for Daoud's protection. "Now," she declared, "it's my turn to protect him." Just then, a main quest popped up on Daoud's system. The message blared, "Monsters have appeared!" And he has to resolve this situation. The stakes are high, because if he doesn't, a lot of people are going to die. Plus, he'll face a major penalty for failing the scenario. Talk about pressure. The reward? Exclusive equipment materials. So, a pretty big deal. He abruptly takes off, leaving Yunori behind. He tells her he has something urgent to do. A mission calls. She's naturally confused and asks why. Why is he in such a rush? What's the big hurry? Why does he have to leave so suddenly? But Daoud simply states that they need to protect the students. Priorities, people! Meanwhile, Helia is looking rough, wounded, and exhausted. She's clearly been through a lot. Daoud arrives on the scene, already dispelling his clone. Efficient! He asks her if she's dealt with all the monsters that escaped from the classrooms. A classroom chaos. Helia replies, relieved, saying it's good he's awake. And the system chimes in, mentioning her level of curiosity. Curious indeed. My interest just spiked. The main setting has changed too. Things are getting interesting. But wait, Helena just said she let a monster escape? Daoud realizes it's the giant bear from before. Oh, it's that guy again. He thinks. Helia says that it must be on the first floor. We need to take it down, she says, her voice strained. We have to finish this quickly. The urgency is clear in her voice, but she admits, I'm too exhausted to do it right now. The fatigue is starting to set in. Daoud thinks he's worried about Helia. I hope she's all right, he silently thinks, but the main objective is the most important thing right now. We need to focus, he tells himself. He needs to prevent that massacre from happening. I can't let that tragedy repeat itself, he vows. Meanwhile, back on the first floor, people are desperately trying to protect themselves with barriers. Hold the line, someone shouts. They're hoping the teachers will arrive soon. Where are they? A worried voice asks. But this monster is incredibly powerful. It's stronger than anything we've faced before. It's already cracked the barrier. The barrier is failing. And they say neither the Chancellor nor Professor Conrad are here right now. We're on our own, a student whispers in fear. One of the priests says, even if that's the case, we can't use the angel's blessing at this moment. We have to save it as a last resort. he explains. Nori asks, why? He's not a priest. What does he know? Nori wonders aloud. But he responds, those are harsh words against him. Show some respect. It's a high-level barrier with the angel's protection. It should be enough, right? Someone nervously hopes. It's not something just anyone can wield, and the knights should be arriving soon, so we just need to wait for them. He actually tried to talk to the academy to stop this kind of experimentation on monsters. He even said he knew that he never should have granted the Tristan family rights. But then Dodd rushed in. He snatched the priest's necklace and said he'd take care of it. The priest asked who he was and why he took the necklace. Did he even know what an angel's blessing was? But Dodd just ran off without answering anything, and he used his blessed incense, using his skills, asceticism, and holy shield. And his system also detected danger to his life and desperate survival that gave him an X-rank skill. The person maintaining the barrier asked why Dodd didn't just run away. Dowd said he'd buy them time so that the students could escape. Then he activated asceticism, which converts additional stats into constitution. And he cast Sacred Shield. The shield was so powerful that it withstood a massive hit from the monster. Everyone there wondered if it was truly an angel's blessing. The monstrous bear continued to slam against the Sacred Shield, but it wouldn't break. People were asking how Dowd, a mere student, managed to use an angel's blessing. Leonore was completely speechless. Dolly even called him a complete fool, if you can believe it.
But why?
Even officially ordained priests, the real deal, have to go through countless mind-numbing prayers and rituals before they can even think of using a blessing of that magnitude. And Honori, bless her heart, just thought to herself that after everything she'd witnessed, all the craziness that had gone down, she wasn't even the slightest bit surprised anymore. Nothing could shock her now. That's because she'd seen him play down his incredible, almost unbelievable power so many times before. It was like his favorite party trick. And yet, there he was, standing firm, single-handedly, mind you, holding back the full, terrifying force of that monstrous creature. Good heavens, the priest was practically sputtering, wondering aloud how on earth he was managing to withstand it all for so long, especially against this pathetic excuse for a monster, all roar and no bite, that couldn't even manage to scratch a simple, flimsy barrier. He muttered under his breath that this student, this supposed nobody, must have meticulously planned this whole charade from the start. And Helia, bless her confused soul, piped up, is he really supposed to be a teacher, I wonder?
He's not lifting a single finger to help us out. What gives?
And Nori, ever the observant one, chimed in with a knowing look.
Ah, so that's where you've been hiding. What in the world took you so incredibly long to show up?
Helia, feeling a bit sheepish now, quickly apologized to the ever-composed student council president, muttering under her breath that this so-called professor was, quite frankly, completely and utterly useless to them. So he knocked him out with a chop to the neck, and Helia responded that he ended up unconscious in the basement. But she told them to forget about it. She told them to focus on the down. Maybe she means what's happening right now. Now he's using a divine blessing like it's nothing. He's not even a battle priest. How is this possible? He's maintaining a barrier. A blessing from an angel for so long. And Nori, I thought divine energy of this level could only be used after 10 years of training. Maybe. She remembered a conversation she had with him. He said he wanted to major primarily in theology, and the translation was wrong before. It said technology. That's why I thought it was strange. But anyway, it all boils down to theology. The reason he's pushing himself so hard is because he needs to learn something specific, and that something is divine energy.
He's made it clear that if he can't protect Yunori,
he's going to die, too. And then it clicks for her. She finally understands why he's so desperate to immerse himself in theology. Helia chimes in, saying that even if it's a blessing, a power that's been stored up inside him, there has to be a limit, a ceiling, if you will, to the potential he can actually control. She turns to Yuno, saying that this whole situation should be good for her. But a puzzled look crosses Yuno's face. What are you talking about? She asks. Helia clarifies. Dog. He's doing all of this for Yuno and for the entire Tristan family. That's why he's so incredibly determined, never giving up. Otherwise, there'd be no reason for him to be there. And it's Elnori. She realizes she's had this feeling from the very beginning, but she felt like she was lost in the darkness until she saw this light, this hope helping her along. So she drew her sword
and thought that Dode
is really quite the oddball. Meanwhile, Dowd was taking a beating with his shield, trying to hold back a monster. Everyone was impressed. When Eulor drew her sword and used the Tristan family technique, she hit it! She crushed the creature's head, burying it in the ground with so much force. But then, after that impact, it rose up and went straight for Elnori, and Daoud thought, This must be the real technique.
Although tries to that bullet.
Yunori was striking so unbelievably fast, it was nearly impossible to see her movements. The creature couldn't even get close to Yunori. With incredible speed, she darted to the side of the monster and landed a precise blow on its neck, then a flurry of cuts across its body. The creature was sent flying across the hall with immense force. Daoud watched in awe. He thought, the only difference between this and my copied version is that hers is vastly more powerful. But a question nagged at Daoud. Is this right? In the game? She never got involved in this kind of thing. Suddenly, the system updated the main quest, monster subjugation. Currently, there aren't many victims. Her achievement is incredible. We've got 30 seconds until the knights arrive, he says, his voice tight with urgency. Reinforcements are on their way. He's thinking hard now, piecing things together. All the professors who defended monster experimentation, he mutters, they're Tristan's supporters. It's a disturbing pattern, and Nori, if she gets involved, his brow furrows. She's basically admitting her own family's mistakes. That's a huge deal. Nori doesn't strike me as someone interested in political maneuvering. He muses. So why is she helping us so much? He's genuinely baffled. We need to wrap this up fast, he urges, his voice laced with urgency. We can figure this out later. He can unravel Nori's motives later, once they're safe. So after a hectic few minutes, everyone was successfully evacuated, he narrates, a hint of relief in his voice. And Nori sheathed her sword once again. She declares simply, it's over. But then something emerges from the flames right behind her, changing everything. Of course, it's Dauda. He appeared to protect her with his divine shield. Even though the creature was burned, only its bones were still moving. It was horrifying. But Daud was hit in the process, and he fell unconscious. After that, he woke up in his bed, and there was a woman by his side. She told him that the monsters were defeated, and Onori is okay. And this woman is Chancellor Atalanti. She assured him that, of course, the other students are doing very well too. He wondered why Daud was so surprised by her visit. She explained that she hadn't had a chance to speak with him after the duel. Of the rookies, Daude replied that he wasn't that surprised, but in his thoughts he was internally freaking out. Atalante Samsung, the immortal being who's lived for 1,000 years. Why on earth would someone like her be visiting someone like him? Maybe it's because he used an angel's blessing, someone speculates. Then Talento appears and says, with a serious expression, that he's here to deliver some bad news. Actually, scratch that. News that's even worse than just bad. He asks our hero which set of awful tidings he wants to hear first. Talk about a Sophie's choice. Naturally, our hero asks for the less bad news first. Gotta brace yourself, right? Talento drops the bomb that he's getting more attention from the higher-ups than any other student in the school's history. Like ever, apparently, there isn't a single student who's been involved in as many accidents and generally chaotic incidents as he has lately. Whoops! And Daudet realizes that this is the exact opposite of the low-profile life he was hoping for. But wait, there's more. Talento then brings up the really bad news. She asks our hero a seemingly casual question. So how much do you actually know about demons? Uh-oh. Gaze, the atmosphere just shifted. He's serious now. And Talento can't help but comment that he had a very interesting reaction to that question. Something's definitely up. She mentioned he didn't seem worried at all, that the student council president was mentioned in the conversation. And Daoud said he doesn't think he'll reveal much of what he knows to tell the truth. And even if he does, he doesn't know if it's a plan to find out what he has. And Talante asked what kind of plan that would be. Daoud said he's the only one who hasn't been enrolled in a specific class yet. He can't even go to a class yet. She said that means he's bothered by the situation. Not really, but she said that thanks to recent events, she needs to do some damage control. So they went to a completely different subspace, empty and dark. And she mentioned that she doesn't know if Daoud is even aware of it. But right now, the ruling power, the current hegemony, doesn't have much control over society. This is a terrible time for the demons. So they're willing to do anything to bring in talented individuals, even if it means plucking them straight from hell. And Daoud said that the tribal association's coup, the changes in the Sacred Empire's organization, and the successor to the throne, it's all because of what's happening. That's why so many events are unfolding like this lately. And Atlantis asked how he knows so much. She said he's right. And right now, the Golden Triangle, although they might seem like friendly neighbors for now, on the surface, the fierce competition for the most talented individuals is still ongoing, even as we speak. And she thought that most of the students wouldn't even be interested in this. Daoud said that thanks to this, the entire continent is feeling these effects. All the events that he was involved in should have caught the attention of these people. But despite all of this, they still haven't made a single move. Because it wouldn't make sense. unless someone is restricting the flow of information and power. Atlantis thought he's also very politically savvy, huh? Dog said that it would be dangerous if he drew the attention of these people. Now, Atlantis confirmed it. If this happens, the world could end. And in that empty space, she showed him a vision of the Golden Triangle being destroyed, leading to the annihilation of everything. It's a devastating image. Then she asks him if he's aware of what this seal represents. This is the reason why she initially inquired if he knew about demons. Dowdy thinks that this is the seal of the Purifiers. Atlant wonders if he's also aware of that. It's then explained that the Purifiers are an organization that worships demons. Scary, right? And they operate from the shadows, adding to the mystery. It's an organization whose sole purpose is to bring demons into this world, to destroy everything. Their goal is nothing short of apocalyptic. And at Lant, she revealed that both the failed assassination attempt, Taonori, and the incident with the monsters escaping were almost certainly his doing. Both were attempts to target the Tristone family, but she went on, saying there's no guarantee it won't happen. A third time. But Daoud asked why she was telling him all of this. Atlantis said she couldn't explain right now, but she's going to give him a card. And Daoud realizes this is a card, an interdimensional one. A key, an interdimensional key. It's an item that completely shatters the balance and can open doors to other worlds. The Atlant people said that looking at his expression, it seems like he already knows what it is, and she told him to take good care of it and show his progress. If she likes his results, she will give some additional gifts. She told him that this conversation is a complete secret, but over a cup of coffee, she asked how Daoud is getting along with the warrior candidate and her relationship with Mr. Stowe. Daoud immediately thought about this question. He said that it's going well, and Atlant said that she hopes it continues that way, and Daoud asked why. There's a reason for him to do this too. She said yes. Exactly. If he fails, the world will end again. And Todd questioned her again. The world ending here is far too easy, he thinks. But Atlanti insisted she wasn't lying. She believed their plan could only succeed thanks to these three individuals. Daoud, the game's protagonist, and Elnori. Then later, Daoud was examining the key to other worlds. He figured he'd reflect on all of this later. But he never imagined Atlanti would give him this. It should be impossible. Even in the game itself, this item was nearly unattainable. Something's seriously wrong with the main storyline, he realized. Just then, Professor Conrad arrived to speak with him as well. He said he'd been wanting to talk to him for a while now. Todd inquired as to the reason. Then he hid that interdimensional key. Conrad explained that, even though he hasn't been enrolled in any specific classes, they can't just let him skip lessons. So she brought a temporary assignment. Time for his schedule, starting tomorrow. He'll be in class with those people. And when Daoud took a look at the list, he was shocked.
It turns out his class is the same as Onori's,
who happens to be the class president.
and also Christianax, who's the class vice president.
Daoud declared, the end of the world is near. Later in one of the classes, the professor explained. That's why the sword can be considered the most basic weapon in any situation. And as he'd mentioned before, he was going to use the obstacle course as an example. But Onori raised her hand and said she had a question. She asked if he didn't think the professor was going too deep into it. Mostly in theory, though, she added thoughtfully, because I don't find that kind of knowledge particularly useful when you're in the thick of a fight. The professor raised an eyebrow. How so? He inquired, intrigued. Leonore leaned forward, explaining, in a real battle, even the most skilled knight with a sword, it can be taken down by someone with a well-aimed shot from a long-range weapon. The professor paused, considering. That's true, he conceded. Leonore pressed on. So unless a person is planning to dedicate their life to mastering the sword, it's absolutely vital to also train in archery. Or other ranged techniques that complement their abilities, Helia chimed in, shaking her head slightly. I actually think the professor's got a point. A skilled swordsman who's aware of their surroundings can easily deflect an arrow or a stone, right? And if the opponent gets close, it's not exactly a fair fight anymore, is it? She challenged. Honori, a haunt of challenge in her voice, asked, okay, but what exactly would you do to overcome that? It all came down to reach, and how the terrain wasn't exactly helping. The situation was tricky, to say the least. But Helena, always one to question things, piped up, wait a minute. Isn't this lecture in class supposed to be about
A good old-fashioned hand-to-hand combat.
Onora, with a hint of exasperation in her voice, retorted, I'm sure you know the difference, Helena, between the theory we discuss and the messy reality of a fight. Helena wasn't backing down. I'm just saying. It's like you're being forced to be here, Honora. The tension in the air was palpable. Why can't you just be quiet, or better yet, just leave if you don't want to be here? Helena added, her frustration clear. Nori, sensing the escalating conflict, jumped in. Whoa, hold on, what do you mean? Forced to be here. Dolly, meanwhile, was caught in the crossfire, looking utterly desperate to defuse the situation. Nori, remembering his duties, straightened his posture and declared, "As president of the student council, I believe it's my responsibility to be aware of the quality of education we're receiving." Helena rolled her eyes. "Okay then. How about we start by not interrupting the teachers?" At this point, the professor, who had been patiently observing the drama unfold, finally interjected, "Should we just end the lesson for today?" Someone asks. "But Honore said no," comes the reply. "Tell her she's too caught up in those theoretical ideas," another voice exclaims. "Well," Alia chimes in, "at least those theories are more useful than listening to her drone on." Ouch. Nori throws in her 2 cents. "I can't believe this warrior candidated. Can't tell the difference between advice and an insult." Daoud, bless his heart, pleads, "Could we please get back to the lesson?" Helena agrees, saying, "Yes, please." And with that, she seems to have won the argument. "I knew Daoud would be on my side," she smirks, victorious. Nori, ever the competitor, retorts, "It's just one loss." She grudgingly concedes. The professor can continue. The professor, looking incredibly flustered, nervously announces, "All right, well then, let's move on to the textbook study, shall we?" Dog thinks to himself, "Are these people always like this? What a chaotic class." Thanks to him. That's why everyone is staring at him, giving him and the 2 ladies strange looks now, since he's practically being sandwiched by the candidate, the warrior and heiress of the Tristan family. But he's going to focus on the system now. This is because Nori is already at level 1 of affection towards him, and the reward he got was the Tristan family's sword technique, with proficiency at 58%, and Daude thought that was pretty useful. And he also gained the deep breathing technique, a breathing technique that extends durability and physical stamina. And this ability is highly compatible with the techniques of the Tristan sword. And Daude thinks these 2 skills working together
Is very.
That's amazing for him. Currently, the only person who can effectively wield this combination is, in fact, Aonori herself. And the reason she becomes the final boss is due to her monstrous combat abilities, especially in close combat. But along with that, Helena Christianax has also taken an interest in him. He's at interest level 1, and because of that, his skill and reward was the evil rule of class. This allows him to exert his influence over the good people who are affiliated with him. Those individuals, the ones affiliated with him, are obligated to accept any request he makes while he's using this ability. Basically, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. It's that kind of vibe. But then, he asks the system why this skill would be so helpful to him specifically. Apparently, he can earn rewards by corrupting good people. So, next up is Professor Conrad's class. And today, they'll be practicing their survival skills. The professor puts it bluntly. If you don't want to end up dead inside a dungeon or ruin, you've got nothing to lose by learning these skills here. Solid advice. Their task is pretty simple, really. Go into the forest and then bring back things they think he would appreciate as gifts. They've got 10 minutes to make it happen. Someone asks if there's an official scoring system. Conrad says no. It's entirely up to him. And he and the student council president, they're going to be grading papers together now. Talk about awkward. They exchange a quick good luck, but the tension is palpable. And Nori is not happy about being stuck here alone, let me tell you. You can practically see the steam coming out of his ears, especially knowing that Helia gets to hang out near Dalde. Someone's got a crush. The students are whispering, calling the whole situation so vague. What does it all mean? But Conrad, ever the philosopher, chimes in. Life is all about experiences, guys. So, he says with a shrug, let's do this. Meanwhile, Daoud is thinking, keep your friends close, he mutters to himself, and your enemies closer. Ominous. How exactly is he going to put that into practice? Just how far is Daoud willing to go? How can he corrupt even the best intentions? That's when Helia approaches him, a bright smile on her face. Hey, she asks. Want to work with me? Daoud raises an eyebrow, a flicker of calculation in his eyes. He counters, shouldn't you be doing that? With your friends? Helia tilts her head, confused. But you are, my friend, silly, she exclaims. But inside, Daoud is already strategizing. For heaven's sake, just go back to your main group. And Daoud thought that this could further alter the main scenario even more. And Healy asked what was wrong with them. Working together. Daoud said it's nothing. It's just that they aren't that close. And Helia got annoyed and said that's really unfortunate. Well, goodbye then. And Daoud wondered if he'd been too harsh with her. She seemed pretty upset by it, until another student approached Daoud. This blonde guy asked about Daoud's relationship with the warrior candidate, and Daoud recognized him as Talion Armand. Daoud thought that this guy is more skilled of the class, excluding Helia. Later on, she'll even become a mid-boss in Chapter 1 as well. He wondered what was wrong with him just now, and he simply responded that he knows her. Duh. But Talion pointed out that someone as skilled as her shouldn't even be talking to him, and the system announced that a virtuous individual has become influential. Thanks to his influence, this breaks the rule of evil. And Talion said that there are many rumors surrounding his dark outcome in the duel, and asked why they keep getting involved. And Daoud noticed this status update. Looks like he managed to fulfill the temperament condition of making Talion angry, right? He asked if the duel was just a sham. It wasn't. Daoud figured that since he's going to become a boss anyway, one way or another, he might as well use him. Daoud declared that the duel was no sham. But if that lie comforts his weak little heart, that's because his goal was defeated in one fell swoop. So he felt the difference between them, didn't he? And Helia, before leaving, was analyzing the two of them, chatting as well. Talion then asked, why don't they make a bet? Whoever has the highest score on this class assignment, how about it? And Daoud thought that this was perfect for him. Meanwhile, Conrad caught Unori's attention, and he mentioned he'd previously asked her for help to assist with grading the students. But she doesn't seem to be taking it too casually. Unori pointed out she's been serious up until now. Why are you saying this? She asked, and Conrad inquired. Oh, really? Then give me an explanation. He questioned. Why does Dolda Campbell already have the highest score if he hasn't even submitted his assignment? Then Nori responded that it's because he deserves it, and asked, are you not satisfied with the score I gave him? Conrad responded that, from his perspective, no. Then Nori countered, why don't you observe Doldy then, and see if he truly deserves that grade? But as she began to leave, Conrad spoke up. Not at all. By any chance? Are you trying to get close to him? Honora responded, no. I just don't want him to be alone with the warrior candidate. She added, it's possible that something might happen between the two of them. Then let her leave this place. Conrad replied firmly, I can't allow that, but I could expel her. How about that? Honora didn't even answer, her silence hanging heavy in the air. Meanwhile, the priestess from Helia's group was thinking that Helia seemed different today, very different indeed. She was tearing through the monsters, showing absolutely no mercy. The barbarian commented, these monsters are strong here. Something must be calling them. The archer confirmed it was true. It must be a region rich in rare minerals. If they could grab some jewels, that would be fantastic. The mage agreed that it was a great idea. But meanwhile, the priestess noticed something strange about Helia. There was something on her chest, a dark core. The priestess figured it was caused by negative emotions. As she'd already noticed, Helena was visibly angry about something. So she asked Helena how she's been feeling. Recently, Helena brushed it off, saying it was nothing much. She said she was fine, but the priestess reassured her that if something was troubling her, stealing her peace, making her angry, or stressed, she can help. And Helia asks what she's talking about. Nothing's happening. The priestess thinks that even if she is doing this, negative emotions could overwhelm her. The priestess says she's sure something is bothering her, and Ellen, out of breath, sits down under a tree and asks if it's that obvious. She says she could never lie to Trisha. No, you couldn't, Trisha replies, then asks if Dowdy Campbell is still keeping his distance from her. Yeah, he is, Ellen confirms. But all I want is to get closer to him, to be his friend. I get it, Helena says, understandingly. You two have been through so much lately, but it doesn't seem like you've gotten any closer. Not on Dowdy's side, anyway. Trisha asks. Maybe, Trisha begins hesitantly, maybe Daoud's intentions weren't entirely what they seemed. There was a subtle warning in her voice, a hint that something more complicated was at play. Helia, her curiosity piqued, leans in. What do you mean by that exactly? She asks, a flicker of concern in her eyes. Trisha chooses her words carefully. He's from a smaller family, she explains. A baronetcy, not exactly high society. She continues, her tone thoughtful. If you, a serious candidate to become a warrior, were seen spending time with someone like him, she trails off, letting the implication hang in the air. I'm sure a lot of people would get the wrong idea. They'd worry about her. A slow dawning comprehension crosses Helia's face.
So, Daoud's keeping his distance to help me?
Trisha nods, a small, understanding smile playing on her lips.
He's probably just trying to avoid
unnecessary misunderstandings, she says gently. Avoid causing a stir. He's maintaining a respectful distance until you've built your reputation. Honestly, Trisha concludes, I truly believe Daoud just sees you as a really good friend. Meanwhile, completely unaware of the girl's conversation, Daoud is pushing himself to the limit, panting and exhausted from his run, and the system alerted him that Talion's rage and fury had reached their maximum limit. It announced that his negative influence had solidified, so he earned one of the rewards from the rule of evil. But Talion, at this point, wanted him dead. He declared he was going to turn him into a sieve and tried to land multiple blows with his spear, but he managed to dodge them. Talion yelled at him to stop running and fight, like a man, and questioned why he was stealing each of his hits. Daoud, trying to defuse the situation, said, Calm down, Talion. We can resolve this. Why don't we just split the reward in half? And Talion's response? You damned... And then he's blasting everything in his path to get to Daoud. So Talion readies his special ability. Meow and Claire launched his spear with tremendous force. But then, someone intervened to defend him. It was Helia. She cleaved the spear in two with her blade and told Talion to stay away from his friend. Talion thought, the warrior candidate.
It is right here in front of me now!
He was genuinely surprised. He exclaimed, it's been a while, hasn't it? This must be the first time we've met since that escape from the monsters. Helia corrected him sharply. You're wrong. She approached him, holding her blade close to his neck.
This,
She hissed.
is the first time we've met.
Since you lost to me, Dog wondered to himself. Where the heck did she come from? Talon, trying to keep the mood light, said, it's good to see you. But she cut him off. What were you doing with Dog? She demanded. Were you bothering him? But Thalia shut him down, saying, that's not it at all. Then bam! She tripped him, sending him sprawling. I don't want to hear your lame excuses, she snapped. Italia, taken aback, conceded. Okay, I get it. Still, he couldn't help but ask, why are you defending this guy? Someone as skilled as you. But Helena cut him off, saying that shouldn't be his concern right now. Daoud tried to intervene, wanting to explain it wasn't like that. But Helena declared, I hate people like you, the ones who think they're better than everyone else. Talion jumped in, accusing Daoud of lying to her, lying to everyone. Daoud was left wondering why Helia was defending him so fiercely. Helia turned to him, a glint in her eye. Or, she asked, do you perhaps want to be defeated with a single blow again? Talion was left speechless, wondering. He questioned, almost in a whisper, if that was the true power of Daoud. He realized he could have genuinely died back there. And so he kneeled. He bowed his head, offering his apology. He vowed that he wouldn't approach her again, without her express permission. Helen sheathed her sword, declaring that everything here was settled. Then, without a word, she simply walked past Daoud. Daoud thought to himself, as expected of a warrior candidate. Well, she certainly knows how to teach someone a lesson. He couldn't help but wonder, did she even still consider him a friend after all that? Maybe she had realized that, but he brushed the thought aside, deciding it wasn't important right now. So he decided to focus on the task at hand. Later on, he was seen carrying a bag overflowing with stuff. Trisha, her expression a mix of curiosity and apprehension, made her way over to him. Do you remember me? She asked, her voice soft but direct. We met in that dungeon back there. The dungeon, a place of peril and shared experience. I have something I need to ask you, Trisha continued, a slight hesitation in her voice. Daoud, ever the pragmatist, thought wryly. Just like in the game storyline, Trisha's dragging this out. Is this going to be another one of those conversations that goes on forever? He wondered internally. Trisha took a breath. This might be a bit of an intrusive question, she admitted, her brow furrowed with concern. But before she could even get to the question, Dog jumped in, dismissive as ever. We'll talk later, okay? Dog said, waving her off. Gotta get my points in first, he added, his priorities clear. Points over potentially important conversations. Trisha's mind raced back to the fight with Talon. Helia had gone into a rage, and it was all because of Dog. Normally, Trisha would have tried to diffuse the situation with words, a calm conversation. Not by immediately reaching for her sword and swinging it at anything that moved. That wasn't like her. She couldn't shake the feeling that Dog was at the heart of the problem. But then, he started walking towards the professor, and her anxiety spiked. He asked, what was all that? The field they were in just moments ago was now completely destroyed. It looked like the professor had gone to war with Nori. The professor explained that Nori kept stubbornly trying to enter the forest. So, the professor said Nori would have to go through him first. And as a result, the professor won. Dog thought to himself, this school is insane. They could have just given him detention, like any normal school. The professor then asked if Nori was playing dead, and Dog said he's just here to get his points. The professor responded, oh, that's right. Everyone continue with the lesson! He said that the Dodge really nailed it seems. He said that with everything he achieved, he ended up in first place. Congratulations to him. And Dodge is sure Percy will absolutely love the gift he got her. Then the professor reminds him that he's earned the wish from before. He wonders why he doesn't ask for something in return from her. Daoud chimes in, agreeing that it's a good idea. Daoud says he'll think about it. Then Trisha asks if the class is officially over. The professor confirms it for Trisha. Class is dismissed. Everyone is free to go. The professor is going to take a little rest. Trisha tells Daoud to look after Helia and not to influence her, to do negative things, because whenever she's close to him, she kind of loses it, and she's afraid that things are going to get worse in the future. And Doug thought, thanks for the warning, but I'm also scared out of my mind. And he walked away and said, okay, and told her not to worry. He's going to do his best. And Trisha thought the best thing for everyone would be if he just stayed away from those two. While Trisha was healing Nori, she thought that Helia might not be aware But she might very well cross the line. So later, at the spell department, Percy asked Daoud if he wanted his wish yet. And Daoud said, yes, I do. He needed something really complex from Doug or from the spell department. And Percy snapped back, making it clear she didn't need anyone. Kissing up to her, no sycophants needed. But she admitted her own limits. She couldn't handle anything too complicated. Daoud, ever the strategist, countered smoothly that he knew she wouldn't be the only one working to make his wish come true, right? He clearly had a bigger game in mind. Percy, ever pragmatic, shot back that nobody would need to work if he'd just forget the whole wish thing. A valid point, if ever there was one. Daoud's mind was already racing. He was thinking about the next showdown with the boss, the Purifier. He had to be ready for absolutely anything. Percy, though still skeptical, conceded with a simple, okay, Professor. Conrad, ever the voice of reason, chimed in that they needed to do everything within their power to help him, so long as it wasn't something that could be twisted and used for less noble intentions. She was in. Daoud's thoughts drifted back to earlier events. He remembered receiving a reward gift from Hylia. 500 points and a seed of evil. Intriguing and potentially dangerous. He can exchange them for special abilities in the points shop. And now Hylia has a seal of evil. He can use the rule of evil on her once. And that same thing applies to Talion as well. And the effects of special abilities are far better than any item. Daoud thought things were okay for now, but there's a lot he needs to prepare. This character that he's playing is too weak to overcome everything that's coming. The different patterns of the Purifiers. And that's why he needs this. He told Percy that he needs a cannon, but specifically a cannon strong enough to obliterate the Academy. She asked if he was out of his mind. She just stared at him for a moment, speechless. She stood up, asking him if he was crazy. This is insane. What does he even plan to do with that? Does he want to take down the whole school or something? And then Dog gets a hold of the paper. He points out that she can't refuse this request. The document clearly states she has to fulfill any
Ordinary?
request. Something as simple as a cannon should be a piece of cake. Especially for the headmaster of a school for witchcraft. Percy asks, a little dumbfounded, if he actually wants a cannon. It's not exactly standard issue for students, she says, a hint of worry in her voice. But Dave just shrugs. A promise is a promise. He assures them he's not going to wreak havoc with the cannon. I'm just going to take care of one little thing. Before it becomes a major headache to deal with, Percy admits. That doesn't exactly reassure me. But Conrad trusts him implicitly. She's sure he has a plan, his own reasons for doing so. And since he's been so helpful with the monsters lately, she's gonna make that cannon for him? Percy then reveals that she believes in Alan's potential. Not only does she allow him to have his own Arn, she actually thinks he's going to save the world someday. Dog asks, wait, what do you mean Arn? And Percy questions herself. Hold on, why am I saying all this? What's wrong with me? It's his fault. It's Dog's fault. Dog tells the professor to calm down, reminding her that Alan didn't tell him any of this. And then it's explained. Percy's sister is Levantine. She's 50 years old and single. Percy then asks if there's anything else he needs to discuss with her. And Doga mentions that she also promised an item for both him and Alan from the Vision Depositor. He wondered if that promise could finally be fulfilled. Now, as Dolly strolled through the corridors, he realized he finally had permission for the cannon. All that was left to do was gather the materials to build it. Dolly figured it wouldn't be too difficult. After all, he could get all those materials by using his interdimensional key. It seemed like everything was falling into place until an elderly gentleman with a cane walked past him and asked, "Are you, by chance, Dolly?" Dolly confirmed that he was. Yes, that's correct. The man responded that they had met here, and what a coincidence it was. He introduced himself as Galder Riverback, who said he worked for a charity foundation, the House of Purification. And the dude thought this whole thing smelled like money laundering. Galder Riverback, the chapter leader, the Purifier. He's the head of the Raging Fire. And Galder mentioned he'd heard rumors about this dude. Apparently, he displayed incredible courage. He managed to stop an escaped monster all by himself. Galder said this wasn't something an ordinary person could do. It's truly impressive. And this dude, examining toolkit, asked him if this was really it. And Galder has said that whenever he sees such an extraordinary student, he can hardly wait to see how they'll turn out in the future. He'd love to have a chat with this dude. He has time. Doug mentioned he thinks that right now is more than enough time for a conversation. And he thought, this is exactly like in the original story. Originally, this guy was supposed to approach Hylia, annoy her quite a bit. But why did he approach him? The main villain was supposed to approach the main character. Could it be that the system recognizes him as the main character? No. There's no way. And Dowdy told Galdera that he'll think about his invitation. And Galdera said, in 3 days. And mentioned he'll see him at the Eye of Twilight. And said he'll be waiting for him. And Daoud thought he said he would think about it. Shoot. And Daoud thought the Twilight Eye is a very fancy restaurant. located just outside the academy. But just looking at this guy's card, his eyes already hurt. And he said, okay, I'll go. He figured that actually, there's no avoiding this main event. Just like before, everything is a 50-50 chance. Getting down to 50 is all he can do at this moment, is to use the information he has. And if he considers everything carefully, in this grand equation, defeating the Purifier won't be impossible. But he still isn't sure why he needs to fulfill the role of Helia. Maybe he's changed everything from the very beginning, but he figures that for now, he needs to focus on something else. He can sort all of that out later. So he knocks on Unori's door and asks if she's in her room. She asks what Daoud is doing here. Daoud says she doesn't need to come out to talk to him. He just wants to drop off a quick message for her. He asks if it's possible that, by any chance, she'll have some free time in 3 days. Then, Unori's secretary chimes in, saying she needs to return the books on time, and points out that she hasn't even read this one. She just lets them gather dust, rents them, it seems, just for the cover art. But Unori cuts her off. David, she asks, are you free in 3 days? Maybe they'd go out somewhere. And then Nori asked, just the two of them? And David confirmed, yes, just the two of them. So she pressed, where exactly? David answered, at the Twilight Eye, that restaurant just outside the academy. The secretary chimed in, oh, that's a very famous place. Nori added, I know that place. And Daoud, she asked, why? Why are you suddenly asking me out on a date like this? Daoud just smiled and said, it's a surprise. I'll tell you when the day comes. She looked almost embarrassed. They shared a long, lingering look through the doorway. Then she blurted out, are you going to pay? Meanwhile, she found her mind drifting back to her childhood. She was clearly upset with someone who had asked her where she was, and she said she apologized. She didn't mean to do that to her. She's going to stop picking on her. That's good. But Helia said he's a liar. He's going to keep making jokes about her. But he said she made it easy for him. But Helia told him to stop picking on his own little sister. He said he was just making a joke. He just wants her to grow up strong. Silly girl. He'd never let anyone hurt her, especially some random stranger. And she said, here, have some cookies he borrowed from the kitchen. And she asked, you stole them? He said, I didn't steal them. It's just an expression. He just took what was lying around, going to waste. But then he sat up straight, explaining that thanks to the Baron, he'll likely be promoted to a knight's apprentice. A knight's apprentice. And after that, he'll head out to the battlefield. He'll experience new things, see the world beyond their little corner. Maybe, just maybe, he'll even earn a prestigious title, like Guardian. Helia, ever the skeptic, pipes up, questioning whether someone who constantly teases her little sister is really Guardian material. He just smirks. You never know. Helia presses further, asking if he could end up dying on the battlefield. A valid concern, right? Pa shrugs, admitting that, yeah, he could. If I weren't as ridiculously talented as I am, he adds with a confident grin. I'm just that good, so I'll be fine. He assures her maybe more to convince himself than her, and Helia said she hopes he's incredibly unlucky. At least he'll stop bothering me, she thinks, maybe even aloud. She desperately hopes that death is waiting for this Caliban. She really wants him gone. Caliban, in turn, declared that if he ever becomes a guardian, he'll do absolutely everything in his power to protect his little sister. That's when Helia jolted awake. Someone was knocking insistently on her door, calling her name. She groggily asked what was going on. It was Doug there to apologize. He admitted he's not really used to things being like this here. So, he explained, he came to apologize about what he said earlier, the whole we're not friends thing. To sweeten the deal, he brought some cookies he'd found in the kitchen for her. Helia, still a little sleepy, asked him why he was apologizing. They are friends. It's okay. She yawned, saying she's still sleepy and is going back to bed. But the dog actually spoke. So, my friend, he said, I really need your help. Can you come with me somewhere? He says it's incredibly urgent. Helia thought to herself, is this guy completely insane? Meanwhile, in another scene, Nori was busy writing a very important letter. His secretary informs him that good news, they've taken care of everything. Regarding the learning materials. Now, she says, we'll double check the fees for each of the clubs as well. And there's the matter of the transferred students. She adds that they will also probably be receiving the student from the Tribal Alliance. She's almost certain that the student is from the sect that fell due to the coup of. She continues, explaining that she's the daughter of one of the tribe's leaders, who are essentially in exile at the moment. Many of her retainers will be coming with her as well. Actually, maybe, her entire family will be seeking shelter and refuge here. The secretary mentions her name is Lilo. Nori, you must have heard of her. Her full name is Lilo Garuda. Nori says he might have heard the name, but he doesn't quite recall right now. But the secretary also mentions that next semester, a true saint from the Holy Empire will be arriving at the academy. Nori asks if she will be coming alone, without an entourage. The secretary says no. They mentioned that some envoys would be coming with her. But seeing how everything is being handled, the chancellor might have pulled some strings, someone suggests. Honori seemed thoughtful, her brow furrowed. Not just a saint, but also the daughter of a tribal leader. A powerful combination. Suddenly, she slams her hand on the table, making everyone jump. I'm telling you, she declares. The Academy is scheming something. She's absolutely sure of it. This place is crawling with shady individuals, and seriously important ones at that, she adds. The secretary shrugs. It's always like this, Honore. Nori chimes in. She's right, you know. Honor seems to have forgotten. But the secretary, ever observant, questions, Why are you so worried, Nori? It's not like you haven't known this academy for a long time, she points out. Nori tries to brush it off. It's just, I'm in a bad mood, that's all. Meanwhile, under the silvery moonlight, Dold was saying it was good. Apparently, there's an observation deck at the school. He mentioned the night sky is supposed to be incredible from up there. Halia asked if they really had to do this right now. Like in the middle of the night? But Dowdy said they didn't have much of a choice. It's the only way to make whatever this is. Perfect. And Dowdy's got that cannon/catapult thing all ready to go. The one he snagged from the Vision storage room. With that, he should be able to do whatever it is he has planned. Even though it's an area that only high-level users can even get to. He's also got that secret card Chance gave him, but Helia's wondering what he's even trying to do in the middle of the night. But then he pushes the button, and, they're catapulted super far away. But the dog, he told her not to close her eyes, to stay focused, to really see what was happening. And then they saw it. A massive portal swirling before them. The dog explained this was the location of a interdimensional portal, the one they were about to step through. He reassured her, though, don't worry. And she remembered her brother, his words echoing in her mind. Keep your eyes open and focused. The dog then added, it might be a little dangerous. Close-o. But here we go. And just like that, they plunged into another dimension, and the portal snapped shut behind them. The dog, as they entered, said they didn't have much time to spend here. This, he announced, is the interdimensional realm. He turned to her, a warning in his voice. Don't touch anything, okay? It could be dangerous. And they were floating, weightless, in this strange new world. They're hopping from stone to stone. She asks him what he's doing. Dolly tells her not to worry. The gravity's unstable in this place, but they need to climb up a little. And Halia asks what he's looking for in this strange place. Dolly says she'll find out soon enough. He tells her to just jump on the rocks. It's no big deal. Helena says, yes, it is. They could die if they fall. Dodge assures her they won't. They're not going to die. Just jump. So she leaps with all her courage. Then her body starts moving in a really weird way. It's like she's fallen into another dimension. But just then, she remembers the battlefield. She remembered the day she was covered in blood. And her brother was shielding her, protecting her. Calvin told her he would take care of Mom and Dad. He warned her that if she ever saw a descendant of the apocalypse, she should hide. But Helia asked, what about you? Will you stay? She retorted, I'm not stupid. I know our parents are gone. It's just us two left. So what are we going to do? Are you going to die too? We can run away together. But Kalivan said no, she should run away alone. He told her that, besides, he was her brother, her guardian. He told her not to worry about him and to run without looking back. He had trained her for this moment, and she let go of his armor, a leap of faith. He reassured her that it was okay. Calivan told her to stay calm and to do exactly what he'd instructed, that some days the only thing to do is run. He'd be there to protect her from behind, watching her back. Then in the present, Dowdy grasped her hand tightly. She questioned him. Didn't you say the gravity was unstable? David pointed out that she was falling quite slowly now, see? Helena, bewildered, exclaimed, what do you mean? I almost died just now. David told her not to worry so much. You'll get used to it. We just need to climb higher to reach our goal. Then they saw it. A beautiful and bizarre landscape unfolding before them. In front of the phantom of the Gregory Pavilion, Dog told someone, hold this. Then he grabbed the little bag and kidnapped that ghost. And Helena asked, hold on, what do you mean, hold? What am I supposed to do with it? She wondered. About the dog. Dog explained that they'd need to run soon. So, he said, just hold on and run. Say from what? Helena pressed, her voice laced with worry. Dog responded, haven't you seen it yet? She replied, I can only see the sky. But then, everything went completely dark. It was as if a massive mouth was looming, ready to devour the light. Dog exclaimed, that's the interdimensional beast. It's time to get out of here, he urged. So there they were, inside the mouth of this colossal beast. Dog stressed that they needed to escape quickly. Grab everything you can along the way, he instructed. So she opened the bag and started scooping up everything within reach. But the creature was getting closer. Just in the nick of time, Dolly managed to open the portal. And so They returned to the academy. He thought about how his calculations had worked out perfectly, actually even better than he'd hoped for. He asked if Helia was okay, if she was hurt. At that, she let go of his hand. But clearly she wasn't okay at all. She asked if he had planned everything, even the escape at the end. Daoud replied, "Of course I did." Everything went according to plan. He thought to himself that this tactic of farming the ghosts in the Gregory Pavilion was a familiar farming tactic from a game he used to play. Helia asked why he hadn't warned her that they were going to an interdimensional realm. Daoud said it was because if he had, she wouldn't have come if that were the case. And Helena said she couldn't believe he woke her up for this. So she tossed the bag near him. Daoud thanked her and apologized for not telling her anything beforehand. But then the system notified him that Helia's affection had increased. Her level of interest went up to a level 4. And Daoud was very confused. Helia, in reality, wasn't as angry as she seemed. David wondered why her affection level had increased. It was at that moment, when they were holding hands, that she felt something nice. Until tomorrow, here's what happened. Daoud went to talk to Talante in the midst of her physical training, and she asked if it was what she thought it was. Daoud said he didn't know what she thought, but that he was a physical entity. Talante asked if he went in, entered the dimensional realm, and Daoud confirmed that he did, and he placed the little pouch right in front of her. Daoud then asked if that wasn't why she gave him the card. To Talante. Talante said she didn't expect him to use it so soon, and then she asked the most important question. What happened to his hair? He said the headmistress, "Percy has a lightning bolt on his head." Daoud said he's in the process of handing over all the ectoplasm that they found in the interdimensional realm, and Talante asked if it was a spiritual entity. By SI, she must have been really surprised. Even though she's a witch, she's still just a scared little kitten at heart. And Daoud asked if that's enough. And Talante asked, "Enough for what?" Daoud said that she would give him another gift, if he could satisfy her, right? But Talante said that the magic tower would bring a fortune. To get that, why is he giving it to her? Daoud said that besides coming here to deliver a gift, he also has a request. Entities, psychic entities, are the consciousnesses of great people with incredible achievements. He would like her to contribute to that. But Atalanta said that if she did that, her inner consciousness would slowly awaken and grow stronger. She mentioned that his decision was, well, pretty predictable coming from him. But hey, it was definitely the right call. Then, when he was about to ask her about the specific item he wanted, she stopped him, saying that first, she wanted to know exactly why he needed it. I mean, think about it. He took down an assassin barehanded, and then defeated the warrior candidate with a single strike. Not to mention the monster he's been taking down recently. So why the sudden need for even more power? What's driving him? Daoud explained it's because the big bad bosses from his original storyline are on a whole other level. Demon level. And the finale of that story? It directly involves both Nori and Elia. Which, by the way, is how he got entangled with both of them in the first place. So, it turns out he has another question burning in his mind. Daoud then asked her point blank why she's always doing him so many favors. Talante, caught off guard, simply asked, "What do you mean?" Daoud replied that he was certain, and she has a ton of questions for him too. Like, how does he know the location of the interdimensional realm? How is he aware of psychic entities? How did he manage to defeat Elia? How did he stop the monsters? He knows things that a regular student just shouldn't know. Not to mention, he's just a freshman. But he feels like the academy has been a bit strange lately. He says he knows. It sounds like an exaggeration, but he genuinely feels like his studies and daily life have been influenced by chance, you know? It's like he's being compelled, forced to do what someone else wants him to do. It's a bit hard to explain. So Dowdy just wants to know what she'd ask him. Talante asks if he's talking to Chance like that. This was a woman from the academy, and let's just say she wasn't thrilled with his attitude. But regardless, he's completely clued into everything that's going on around him. He straight up asked her why he's getting the VIP treatment. And Talante, well, she basically said it's because she thinks he's cute, which made Daoud wonder, why is she playing this game with him too? Anyway, to cut a long story short, by the end of their chat, she'd helped him get an item tied to a psychic entity. Apparently, if he can boost his synchronization rate with this psychic entity, and it awakens, it's going to be a huge asset from Chapter 2 onwards. But still, there was the main mission for this chapter hanging over his head. The Purifier. He needed to deal with an incident that's about to go down. In the eyes of Twilight, Daoud realized he needed to wrap up these missions first. Just then, his partner arrived to meet him. Daoud asked if he'd kept the president waiting. Unori told him not at all. She just got here herself. Well, she arrived about 6 hours ago. No big deal. Unori shrugged it off. Daoud was struck by how different Unori looked. A completely unlike the human receptionist he remembered. He couldn't help but wonder. 6 hours? He thought. That means she was here before sunset. Then, Unori explained that it was her first time visiting a place like this. So, she found a spot nearby and waited there until they arrived. Then she asked him, "Is this your first time being outside the academy too, right? Since he's a newbie. And she asked why he wasn't looking her in the eyes. And Daoud thought this might be his first time going out with a girl, this kind of style, in the field. And he thought this felt more like a date. Then she took his hand and started pulling him forward. Meanwhile, there was a huge crowd of people, everyone eager to see something specific. Daoud wondered if they could even get through the crowd. As they got closer, they saw that Talion was the one working there. Daoud asked if he was working here, and Talion asked if he remembered him. He said he's working part-time here. His family isn't sending him much allowance, you know? And he got a little nervous, because the student council president was there too. He wondered what exactly the relationship between them was, which explains why they came to this place together. The waiter, meanwhile, was circling back, asking about the rest of their order. Dode, ever the observant one, couldn't help but pry into their relationship. Even Daoud himself was wondering. This looked suspiciously like a date, didn't it? Then Unori piped up, asking Talion if she could borrow his influence. Bon ditum, aka cut in line using his authority. Talion, ever the gentleman, readily agreed, "Of course, go right ahead." It was then that Dode's sharp eyes zeroed in on something. A necklace Talion was wearing. What is that thing? Daoud wondered. His curiosity piqued. Talion acknowledged his gaze. Oh, this? It's a cord the Purity Foundation gave me. Daoud ought to know the kind. Apparently, this necklace came with a special ability, something called the Rule of Evil, meaning the authority, whatever it was, would fall onto Talion. Daoud, clearly concerned, immediately advised him to stop using it, and he stressed the importance of making absolutely sure that other part-time workers didn't get their hands on it either. And Talion gave Lord Daoud the go-ahead. Daoud realized that after increasing his affection with Unori and Elia, it seemed like the main story was shifting. Therefore, he also needed to improve Marcus Riverback's affection towards him, because the chances of him simply waltzing in and out of here without anything happening are zero. The story has completely twisted and turned. But well, speak of the devil. Because who showed up in front of them but Riverback himself? Daoud thought he needed at least one counter-strategy in this situation. Then, the main mission popped up again right in front of him. It warned him that the villain was trying to obstruct his path. And Riverback turned to Nora and asked if he could borrow Daoud's for just a moment. What excuse would he give? He takes something with him, and Nori asks, who gets to decide that, huh? Daoud says that everything's all right. Riverback mentions he'd take her to the VIP area, separately, if she wanted, and he says it'll just be for a moment. Then he mentions that Daoud is quite close to Tristone's daughter, so Daoud follows him for a more private conversation. Riverback asks if he's already aware of why he called Daoud here, right? Daoud says he is. He's planning to do something messed up about reviving a demon and exploiting the weaker public order during the Full Moon Festival. That's when he plans to cause a massacre and use the blood and death to obtain demonic energy. Potent, isn't it? After unleashing various monsters in many different locations, he's going to deal with the knights using assassins. Then he plans to bring chaos and terror to awaken the demon that sleeps within the Tristan lineage. The assassination attempts and terrorist attacks were also Riverback's doing, and Daoud said he was given the chance to read all these plans. So, what is he going to do now? Riverback was completely shocked. Now he understands why that woman called him a prophet. Riverback thought he was harmless. Riverback says that's incredible, but his subordinates have already finished off Leonore. But Leonore appears, bursting through the door, with freaking all his might. So, earlier, when she was kind of being led away by the subordinates, he already had a strange look on his face. She saw some guards approaching with swords, and they said she's been having trouble with madness recently, and they were there to help her. But Honora stood up and said that according to imperial law, there are no issues in reporting demon worshippers. After dealing with them, and the guard asked if she really thinks she'll be able to handle them. Then Nori said she'll try to hold on, and the guard said they needed to capture her alive, so she needed to stay very still. But Nori grabbed the guy and smashed his face into the table, and of course they weren't getting out of there alive. She drew her sword, which had been very well hidden, and she started whacking everyone with it, laying the smack down, taking them out one by one. None of those subordinates could withstand her blows. Even their swords were being shattered. And Riverback muttered that this was impossible. Impossible? Meanwhile, Nori exclaimed how invigorated she felt. The system notified Daoud that Nori's affection had reached friendship level, and her madness had improved thanks to him. Nori then worried that at this rate, her social outing would be ruined. He's going to have to go on another date with her, right? So he unlocked an exclusive quest. He's caught the attention of Nori's father. Daoud wondered why. But at that moment, Riverback hadn't given up on his plans just yet. And he mentioned he hadn't planned on using this yet. So, it turns out he was drawing upon demonic essence. Daoud naturally asked why. Why was this showing up at this point in the story? And then, he told Honora that she had to stop this man from using it. But Riverback, with a chilling grin, declared he would now receive the grace of God. And as he consumed the demonic essence, an immense surge of demonic power erupted from that place. After everything was destroyed, Daoud somehow managed to crawl out from the rubble, and Riverback stated he hadn't wanted to use this yet, not until the prophet had fallen. But then he accused Daoud of being responsible for this. It's explained that what he consumed was a demonic essence, which temporarily grants demonic power dwelling within the user's body. And currently, he possessed the power of an archdemon. Daoud couldn't help but wonder, an archdemon in the very first chapter? Are you kidding me? He thought, a touch of disbelief creeping in. His mission was to subdue the purifier. Besides, of course, keeping the number of casualties to a minimum. No pressure, he muttered sarcastically, and the Riverback began his purification. Daoud realized that the real problem wasn't Riverback himself, but something else entirely. It was the ghoulish, demon-worshipping scavengers, the ones who were truly causing chaos. Those guys that Ionora had taken care of. They were all back, but Daoud wasn't alone in this fight. Several of them were struck down simultaneously. Nori was the one providing backup. Of course she was alive, Daoud thought, a grin spreading across his face. And then Talion jumped into the fray out of nowhere, adding another layer of complexity. What's the meaning of all of this? Talion demanded. Looking around at the chaos, he couldn't help but wonder, why are there so many monsters all of a sudden? And another pressing question? Where in the world did Riverback disappear to? He then turned to Daoud, a hint of playful sarcasm in his voice, and asked, So, Daoud, did you enjoy my unique technique for giving you feedback? Referring to the fight, but Daoud's response was sobering. He simply stated, with a touch of sadness, They're all our companions. Daoud added grimly, If I were wearing that collar right now, I'd be just like them. His voice was heavy with the implication. One of them, and Daoud issued a stern warning. Don't kill any of them, Talion. Not if we can help it. Talion's mind raced. Is the Marquis behind all of this mess? Daoud confirmed with a serious nod. Exactly. That's precisely what's happening. And if you don't want to end up one of them, you better listen up and listen good. The pieces were starting to fall into place for Talion. He finally grasped the gravity of the situation and what they needed to do. Daoud explained his immediate plan. I'm going to handle something crucial. My priority is protecting the civilians. We have to stop the Marquis, whatever the cost. His voice was resolute. And then, to Talion, a blunt but urgent directive. Just run, Talion! Don't look back! Don't hesitate! Just go! As Talion was about to leave, Nori interjected, with a worried tone. Do you even know where the Marquis is holed up? Daoud mentioned he had a hunch. He figured all demons always have the same goal, to spread chaos and despair, and they have a name for the demons' sacred land. Pandemonium. That's exactly where Riverback is heading. So, Riverback was facing the Great Barrier. He knew he couldn't destroy it, but he could inflict some damage. So, he gathered his power to strike the barrier. But of course, Daoud was already there. And Riverback asked how he knew he'd be here. Daoud said he's pretty predictable in his decisions. With a demon's access and authority, of course he'd go to where the main demon is sealed, and Daoud arrived riding on Yunori, and asked Yunori nicely to put him down. Riverback, he mentioned Daoud had already taken care of some of the dirty work for him. After wiping everyone out, apparently, he'll grab Tristan's daughter's body. That's the mission. But Daoud assured Yunori that no matter how messy things get, they'll both make it out alive. Yunori wasn't buying it, though. She didn't feel quite as confident, as Daoud seemed to be. That's how it is. But Tristan's name carries weight, and Yunori is ready to throw everything she has into this fight. So she charges straight at Riverback, unleashing a flurry of attacks. Meanwhile, Daoud was sprinting off in the other direction, and Riverback tried to blast him with some kind of storm attack. But Daoud dodged every single blast with impossible ease. It was almost unreal. Even Riverback was having a hard time processing what he was seeing. But he had bigger problems coming his way. Yunori just landed a devastating blow. Meanwhile, Daoud was literally running for his life through a minefield. Riverback yelled at the little bug to stop running and fight him. And then Riverback unleashed such incredible power that it sent both Daoud and Nori flying. They went tumbling across the ground. Then, tapping into the power of his demonic heart, he summoned the Fangs of Darkness. He declared that this time he'd finish Daoud off for good. Daoud wasn't at all sure he could withstand the attack, not even with his divine shield. And the moment the Fangs struck the divine shield protecting him, it shattered completely. Daoud was thrown backwards, racked with intense pain. But hey, he was still alive. Riverback boasted that Daoud, he's proving to be much tougher than expected. It seems he's already played all the cards up his sleeve. And Nori told Daoud to get up. While shielding him, she declared she'd buy them some time. Riverback commented that the daughter of Latristan is incredibly resilient as well. He remarked that they make a truly formidable couple, a beautiful couple.
And there's Nori.
Remembering all the moments she's shared with Daoud, all the times he's protected her. Whether it was indirectly taking out assassins or directly shielding her body from harm, Nori realized it was her turn to return the favor. Daoud had only managed to stay alive thanks to his vitality-boosting necklace. That necklace of vitality. It bolstered Daoud's constitution and stamina. Nori declared she'd trust him until the very end. Riverbeck confessed he was nearly brought to tears and asked if they were finished with the strategy meeting. But Nori had a question for the Marquis of Riverbeck. So, Nori asked him if he really thought that she and the man behind her looked good as a couple. Riverbeck paused, considering the question. He chuckled lightly. Riverbeck wondered, what does she want to do after she leaves here? Become a housewife? But she moved with such incredible speed that Riverbeck barely registered her movement. And then he took a powerful kick, right to the face. Nori kept attacking him, her strikes so fast that he couldn't even react. She unleashed the Tramontana Maximum, the ultimate striking skill, the most powerful technique in her family's repertoire. She turned Riverbeck into a human rug. He was thrown to the ground with such force that everything around him cracked. The Riverback yelled that it was all Daud's fault. He realized Daud had already scurried away, like the little rat he is. Then he took off quickly, heading towards the city. At that moment, those demonic zombies were all defeated. Conrad declared that everything was over here. Elia said it was a good thing they were there. It would have been very dangerous without their strength. Percy agreed, but Percy mentioned that Daud was the one who warned them. And Conrad sighed he owes that kid lunch. If they hadn't been here, things would have been much worse. They also wondered, how did that kid know? He wondered. Was Daud's move just luck? Or a crazy coincidence? Just then, Daud was hobbling along, totally beat up, limping badly. He thought, thank goodness Talion got out of here. Every muscle ached, but he reassured himself, Unori just needs to hold on, just a little longer. But in the very next second, she was thrown to the ground right beside him, almost breaking her neck. Riverback sneered, declaring that they were both extremely determined. But he announced this was the end because they had no more tricks left. And a shadowy bolt of energy pierced right through Daud's chest. Yunori watched the whole thing unfold before her very eyes. She saw him essentially. But the instant that happened, time itself froze. He activated the death amulet, and some kind of entity intervened, saving him from certain death. Hovering above him was what appeared to be a demon, or perhaps a succubus. And it wasn't just him. Time stopped completely. In the forest, the Riverback, the Unori, everything. The system alerted Daud that his life was in immediate, direct danger. Because of this, his ability was triggered, and a demon appeared to save his life. Daud, in his confusion, wondered if part of his system had malfunctioned. If some of his abilities had been stolen. That was the demon who possessed Unori's body, right? Using her as a host. It's a fragment of the white demon, standing right there, facing him now. And the system set his skill, Mortal Charm. Gives him the highest chance of making evil targets fall in love. In other words, the white demon approached him, and the system indicated that the effect of his skill was incredibly powerful. The demon actually said she loved him. Maybe not herself, the white demon fragment, or perhaps her host, Unori. What matters is that because of this love, a mark was made on Daud's chest. He acquired the Mark of the Fallen, which guarantees an effect unknown to the system. And Daud noticed that the wound on his chest, that was completely regenerated. By the demon standing right in front of him, Daud realized he was in the presence of one of the world's most powerful demons in the world. And this incredibly powerful being was being friendly to him. He has no idea how this encounter will change the future, but he has acquired what he needed in this moment. And the system informed him that now he possesses the ability of duplication, but Daud is feeling immense pressure in his body due to this intense demonic power coursing through him. It feels like he's being torn apart from the inside. He will copy the ability that he needs, the one connected to his very being, what he needs now and will need in the future. And the white demon applauded Daud's actions. She was deeply impressed, and the white demon said she would see him again. She'd make absolutely sure she saw him again, because that's what she desperately wants. Then time snapped back to its normal flow. Riverback roared that he would turn Daud to ashes. He unleashed a devastatingly powerful blow, but when the smoke cleared, Daud was gone. He'd reappeared behind Riverback, lightning fast. Daud landed such a powerful strike that it sent the poor guy flying, crashing back to the ground. Riverback can't seem to catch a break. He's on the ground again, wondering what on earth just happened. Then Daud appears before him, significantly more powerful than before. Riverback's internal system is blaring warnings. This is an extremely dangerous situation. A danger that puts Daud's life is in danger. That's why His desperate survival skill, rank X, has been activated. He's gained a new ability, Sovereign of Pandemonium. Now he's incredibly powerful against hostile demons and against any other enemy with demonic power. For the next 5 minutes, Yunori barely has the strength to speak, but she's watching. Dowd and Riverback wondered aloud, how could someone as pathetic as him awaken such power? But Dowd didn't waste any more time on words. He charged forward. Riverback, what you stammered?
The prophet never said anything about this.
But Dowd landed a punch so powerful on Riverback that it crushed him. Riverback went sprawling, eating dirt the whole way down. Dowd declared, "It's time for round 2. Riverback was still in shock, struggling to comprehend. The prophet never said anything about this, he repeated, bewildered. Dowd's power. It was slowly but surely overwhelming the demon. Riverback could barely stand. Dowd, on the other hand, stood tall, radiating power, unscathed. Riverback desperately wondered how Dowd had become even more powerful than him. Suddenly, Riverback was seething. He'd dedicated so many years of his life, had so much time honing his power, pouring it into his body, and now this mere kid was actually managing to beat him back? It was beyond frustrating. That was the fire that made him rise, even angrier than before. He summoned the dark mist, channeled demonic energy, infused it with demonic essence. He amplified his power and also called upon the blessing of the Tar Soul. Through the dark mist's influence, his physical body was being reinforced, hardened to an insane degree. And so Riverback and Dowd charged at each other with their full power unleashed. The sheer impact of their blows was so earth-shattering that it carved out yet another massive crater in the battlefield. And yet, Riverback still couldn't land a solid blow on Dowd's face, but he protected himself just in time with his divine shield. The Riverback couldn't comprehend how he was managing to wield power that was both divine and demonic at the same time. Then, Dowd landed a devastating knee to Riverback's face. The force of the blow caved his face in, practically sending it into his own body. Riverback went flying, slamming against a tower in the background, like a ping-pong ball ricocheting off a wall. But Dowd wasn't finished there. He relentlessly pursued Riverback's reeling body, ready to deliver the final crushing blow. But fate had other plans. The duration of his power-up suddenly ended, and all his incredible power vanished in an instant. He plummeted to the ground, right alongside the dazed Riverback, landing inside a massive freaking catapult. Dowd, ever the quick thinker, quipped, "Well, good thing they didn't return this." And without hesitation, he activated the catapult, sending Riverback soaring through the air far, far away. Because now he was in no shape to trade punches anymore. But Dowd had a plan, a way to deal with him from afar. Dowd wondered, if these would be his last words. A shiver went down his spine, but he pushed the thought away. And with that special item, that cannon he'd been longing for, he blasted the Riverback. The Riverback wasn't expecting that, not one bit, and he was burned to a crisp, reduced to ashes in an instant. The system chimed, announcing that he'd finally completed
The main quest?
He'd earned a demonic essence and a hero fragment. Not bad. Plus a whopping 5,000 points. Dowd couldn't help but wonder if he really deserved all this. At least he's getting better rewards now, that's for sure. The harder the challenge, the greater the prize, it seems. Normally, he'd have to choose between just 2 rewards. But Dowd figured that, despite the odds, he'd just scored 2 awesome things who are going to help him fix this whole mess. Just then, someone approached him. They announced the student council president is awake and asking for him. And that's Atalante, by the way. She also made it clear the doll is going to have to explain everything that happened to her. Every single thing. He needs to spill all the beans, especially about the gray demon. David, understandably confused, asks what she means. Atalante coolly replies that she's only asking because she knows he's aware of the situation. Then she drops the bomb. Are you involved with the demon?
You're not involved, are you?
Meanwhile, over in the infirmary, they're giving Yunori a blood transfusion. They're fighting to keep her alive. It's touch and go for a while, but she's holding on. The healing priest hasn't arrived yet, adding to the tension. Everyone's worried sick. Meanwhile, Atalante was having a private conversation with Dowd. She revealed that one of the Grey Demon's authorities is corruption, which occurred on a large scale at the Academy. Just last night, she's certain that both the Inquisition and the Holy Empire will be very interested in this matter. Atalante told Dowd that he's about to become the eye of the storm. Atalante then asks him if he already knew what was going to happen. And that's why he acted the way he did. Dowd thought he'd already given up on living as a peaceful background NPC in this place, especially after receiving instructions and power from a demon. Dowd then says that he was actually lucky. And Atalante, she mentioned that the most powerful commander in Pandemonium is the Grey Demon. And she suspects that the Grey Demon has chosen the council president Nori as its vessel, and Daude confirmed it. He said he was already aware of this, but he was in a lot of pain. That's when Adelante apologized. First, she wanted to thank him and Nori for protecting the school. Then, out of nowhere, she made him float, so he wouldn't feel so much pain. But Adelante told him to focus on the conversation at hand. She said that everything she was about to say was a secret. So with her magic, she floated him right into her lap. That's when Atalante started talking about two big things right in front of Dowd's face. She revealed that thanks to the final actions of the last warrior, the demon fragments were scattered across the world. But one of them has already manifested. The other fragments will converge on that human, becoming his core. And just yesterday, the gray demon awakened. Soon the fragments will reunite. She's referring to the other demons and their hosts. It's explained that even in the original story of the game, the other demon users caused catastrophes. The Red Knight incident was caused by the Crimson Demon. Crimson? A massive incident. The entire Helia family was wiped out by this demon, and the Crimson Fragment chose its host randomly. So, this demon, it seems, changes its game plan with every move. The only constants are Elnori's backstory. And Helia. Atalante mentioned that the Sacred Empire possesses incredible intelligence. They probably already know who the candidates are. The bearers of the demonic fragments. And Elnori is one of those bearers. She's going to do everything she can to gather all these people at the academy. Dote wonders if she's really gathering all the bearers at the academy. All of them? He wonders if it's dangerous to put so many of these individuals in one place. But Atalante says that true love has only happened once. A demonic fragment bearer fell in love. And as a result, the demonic fragment has been completely eradicated. Basically, love uproots the seeds of destruction. That's the idea here. Daoud thought that his faith would shield him from any consequences, that it wouldn't have anything to do with him. But, of course, that is a very classic storytelling cliche, isn't it? And Talente pointed out that the gray demon seemed to have taken a liking to Daoud. Daoud was taken aback. How do you know it? He asked. I mean, he quickly added, of course not. Talent simply stated, I saw everything. She explained that she saw the demon tending to his wounds, applauding him even. It clearly liked him. Daoud stammered. It must have just been pity. Talente shook her head. The reason doesn't matter. This is the important part. The demon was interested in Daoud in a very strange way. Intriguing, right? His knowledge and his ability to execute plans had been assessed and approved by Talent herself a long time ago, a while back. Daoud is an excellent student after all, and now she's about to make a very earnest request of him. She pleads with him, please, seduce the demon wielders. Daoud, taken aback, scoots away to the other side of the sofa. What are you even talking about? He asks, bewildered. Talante assures him that she'll help in any way she can. But Daoud clarifies that that's not the issue. Talante then asks if he's worried about the gender aspect. She confirms that all the candidates have been confirmed as women. Each of the demon fragments has chosen a different girl, and they are all gathering at the academy. Talent. He mentioned that this heavenly blessing he received meant he was applauded by the gray demon. So, why wouldn't he be able to seduce other women? Dog felt like he was being treated like an object, and Talento told him to use anything available to him to seduce all the bearers and eradicate the demonic fragments. Only then would the world be saved. Dog pointed out that she didn't specify true love. Seduce? How? And Dog asked how many times she wanted him to do this. Talento said that it definitely wouldn't be easy. Demonic worshippers are after Daoud, and the bearers aren't exactly normal and easy to handle people. And Daoud thought it would be easier to let Talento deal with these people. But Atalante explained that this is her request. She wants him to save humanity. And Daoud thought she just wanted to escape from here. Daoud said he has a question for Chance Aller, one he probably already knows the answer to. But he asked what will happen if he, fails to seduce any of them. Atalante replied that she already warned him about this, didn't she? Humanity will be completely annihilated. The world will descend into ruin, and the evil empire will dominate everything. She believes that's the stakes. Daoud mentally groaned, thinking he hates game developers. Later in the infirmary, Yunori was waking up. She wondered where she was, until she heard some shouting. The sounds of someone trying to stop a student. But the student insisted she skipped class just to come here. Then the door opened. It was Yunori's secretary, and Yunori asked if she had skipped class to come there. She said, of course. I was so worried about you, she confessed. She asked Yunori if she knew how worried she had been. She thought Yunori was dead. But Yunori at that moment remembered Daoud when he was pierced through the chest. Yunori asked what had happened to him. To Daoud, she said that he has already been discharged. Actually, she said he wasn't as badly hurt as it looked. In fact, Yunori was in much worse shape than he was. Yunori agreed, saying yes, she was pretty badly injured, but Daoud wasn't injured. Then a memory surfaced. The day Daoud came to visit Yunori, when Yunori was still hooked up to an IV. The secretary recalled that Yunori had been in that state for 2 days. She'd even declared that Daoud would bear the responsibility for Yunori's death. But Daoud with unsettling calmness, had reassured the lady not to worry. He'd left a bouquet of flowers, a stark contrast to the grim atmosphere, and with unnerving confidence, he'd said that President Yunori wasn't going to go down that easily. He practically guaranteed that she'd wake up in a few days. The lady had pressed him, demanding to know how he could be so certain. Daoud simply replied that it was because he had survived. If he could pull through, then Aonori would too. After all, the Tristan family wasn't exactly known for their weakness. And yet, Yunori had risked everything to protect someone like Daoud. Exasperated, the secretary had urged her to forget about him entirely, just for a moment. That's what he said. Then he asked if she was strong enough to hold a pen. Not quite. Now that she's awake, there's a mountain of paperwork to tackle. But Nori reminds her that she's still a patient. Okay? However, the assistant just keeps rattling on, saying that they've just received news about 2 people who've been causing quite a stir recently. And the first of these people is Santa Lucia. Noria then asks if she wasn't supposed to start in the next semester. The assistant confirms, that's right, but not anymore. It's been decided that she'll start at the academy next week. And because of the incident that she herself got involved, she believes the Sacred Empire and the Inquisition will make a move. And she hasn't even mentioned the other person yet. Who's even more of a problem? Pretty soon, Sir Gideon will also be showing up at the academy, and he's Ionori's father. Meanwhile, in a tower overlooking the city, a boy remarks that the view is actually quite beautiful from up here. But someone tells him to close the window. It's a girl who's smoking. She complains that the light is way too irritating. The boy finds this amusing. The saint of this era doesn't like the light, he observes. Lucia retorts that if he'd spent the majority of his life locked away in a dark chapel, he'd probably feel the same way. The boy replies that this conversation is getting a bit dark. It's too much, but Sampa told Wade to close the window. But Wade said he wants a bit of peace for the time being, and Lucia asked if he really wanted peace. A diamond worshiper and a saint in the same room. He's talking about peace? And Wade said he thought she had become a little more friendly with him. The anxiety he felt during their first meeting, maybe it's disappeared. And Lucia said they are simply cooperating. Because they have a common goal. She has no intention of befriending him, but Lucia asked if he thinks that's really possible to do. Wade said maybe a little. Wade said that maybe it's the humans who are holding her leash, or the destiny that wants it so badly. He needs to fight for his life, so fate will return the favor. He'll get what he gives. That's how it works. But Lucia's had enough. She says he can think whatever he damn well pleases. At least she has someone who needs her, someone to protect.